everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I'm Mr. Warren Hayes, who is with you right now to talk about professional wrestling for a couple of hours easily here on youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes on your favorite podcast application. Because we've got ourselves a nice hefty show for you today, and I hope you're into it. I hope you're into to listen to a bunch of happenings and analysis about what's going on in professional wrestling. But listen, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, consider leaving a like if it's your first time here. I hope I can earn your subscription as things go along. Otherwise, 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, 5-star ratings on Spotify would go a long way to making this podcast grow and grow like the bad weed that it is. Listen, we are talking okay, first and foremost, we've got the New Japan Dominion in Osaka-Jo Hall 2026 show to review. We have that on tap. We're going to be talking about those CM Punk rumors that appeared just about a week ago, a few days ago, about a week at this point. And all the kerfuffle that happened around it. And I've got some thoughts, maybe not as necessarily on the rumors, but on everything surrounding it and how these things should be dealt with. The G1 Climax 36 field was revealed, so we're going to talk about that. Yota Tsuji and Forbidden Door season. Look, we've got a bunch of stuff. We really have a bunch of really juicy stuff to get into. So might as well just get into it right now. Thank you very much for being here. Before we get to that, Killer Kross was on Ariel Helwani this week, and I want to talk about this clip here. I want us to chat about this clip here because
it's time to play the game.
Right. That's right. That's what we were talking about.
Time to play the game.
Right. I enjoyed this clip tremendously, and I will break it down if you don't understand why. Let's give it a listen. Killer Kross on Ariel Helwani, who asks him, about, did Triple H reach out to you? I don't remember if in the clip you hear Helwani ask the question or not. Paul Levesque. I don't remember if you hear him ask the question or not. But did Triple H reach out to you after or whatever, after you were fired? So, but look, I enjoyed it. It is my duty, my responsibility as the owner of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show to dress down Paul Levesque whenever we have an opportunity to do so. So we have an opportunity to do it here.
And you didn't hear from him?
No.
Even in the aftermath?
No.
Does that bother you?
It did.
Okay. See, so he was bothered because Triple H never reached back out to him because he thought he was one of his boys. Because Paul really, really likes the Killer Kross. Now, in all fairness, just to be very clear, whatever we may think about Killer Kross and whatnot, I have always heard that Killer Kross is an extremely nice guy. Like, he's really, really a nice guy. I've had one person tell me verbatim, too nice for the wrestling business. So I'm not surprised that a guy like Paul Levesque, and especially like they enjoy, tattoos and motorcycles, I know, and leather jackets. I'm not surprised that they got along. I'm not surprised at all.
It did, but I just try to tell myself that there are things going on that are so strange.
Pay attention here. There are things going on that are very strange. How strange are they?
That might not occur to you that perhaps he's no longer in a position to speak to the talent anymore once they exit.
He's not in a position to talk to the talent once they exit? Wait a second. This is Paul Levesque. He's the ringmaster.
Not an isolated situation. And it's not at all to throw shade at him at all, but
no, we can throw shade.
I don't think anyone understands the nature of his position.
Oh, I think everyone understands Paul Levesque is the ringmaster. He's the head honcho. He's the man. He is WWE. He controls everything. He makes sure that the shows are at the peak quality that they have, right? That's who he is. At least that's what everyone tells me he is.
I think everyone just thinks he's just the boss and there's nothing attached to that.
Right. He's the boss. He's the guy. I mean, that's how he portrays himself on television, right? He's always coming out and taking the acclaim. Well, not less now because everybody thinks the product is dirt. So he's not coming out to say, hey, I'm the king of dirt, but because he's the king of things. He's the king of kings. What are we doing here? So of course, yes, he's the boss. He's in control of everything.
I think there's a whole new hierarchy of things above him that he has to answer to, and perhaps maybe he's even told not to contact the talent afterwards.
Really?
Hang on a second. Wait a minute. Is our boy Killer Kross here? Is he telling us right now that Paul Levesque has a bunch of bosses over him and that may have instructed him to not contact talent after they've been fired? Are you trying to tell me that Paul Levesque doesn't have real authority in WWE? Are you trying to tell me that Paul Levesque just is there to do his job, make sure the shows go on and the talent are happy and that's all? Are you telling me that Paul Levesque is a middle manager? Which is something that I have been telling you all for months here on this podcast. Are we, look, at the very least, this little testimony here from Killer Kross, it ain't beating the allegations. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe. It's all a lot of maybes, right?
It's all a lot of maybes, but, it's kind of like, I feel like there might be people above him that are, because listen, Killer Kross has known both Paul Levesques. He's known the Paul Levesque who was in control of NXT, who had the support of Vince, right? And then Vince fired him, but then Paul brought him back. So he knows the Paul Levesque that did have like a modicum of control over things. So he is probably in a really good place to be able to differentiate like between before and after type of thing. Spot the differences, if you will. He probably says he's no dummy. Killer Kross is not a dummy. Maybe he does see something there.
But it did bother me. I will tell you, it bothered me very, very much.
As someone who was, again, a byproduct of, I think, maybe his best run when people were really believing like, wow, this guy is a great booker. I still...
Which of course, the run, this must be remembered properly. The run where everyone thought Triple H was Booker of the Year, he was just playing with Vince's toys, with everything that Vince had left over. Because the minute when Paul Levesque had to actually come up with things himself because the Vince angles and stories had run out, he choked, and he's still choking to this day.
Believe that he's a great booker, head of creative, whatever you want to call him.
Same.
I was on Eric Bischoff's podcast last week, and I was
Ariel, come on, man.
like, I don't know where to place the...
I mean, I'm saying this as if I'm surprised. I'm not. It's just like, come on, man.
blame, but I feel like there are things happening above him and pressures and whatnot that tie his hands, like, because I don't understand how...
I want to make sure we got something clear here. I am not showing you this, okay, in any way, shape, or form to play defense for Paul Levesque in any shape or form. I am not going to be one of these guys who's going to tell you, hey, you know what, the WrestleMania 39 main event or whatever the fuck it was, 38, it sucked because The Rock got involved in all that. I am not one of those. If you're in control of your creative, if you're the man who's behind the creative and the creative sucks, it is absolutely your fault because it is your call, because that's how it goes. That's how leadership works. If things don't work, well, there's something wrong probably at the top. And if the guy at the top is not fixing it, well, what are you supposed to do moving forward, right? So he's saying, oh, he has his hands tied. No, fuck it, no. Ariel, no, he doesn't have his hands tied. He's just getting orders, and he's getting orders while pretending that he's a big shot. So he just has to play his role, just like Bruce Pritchard plays his role. Bruce Pritchard doesn't pretend to be this great creative influence on Monday Night Raw and being like the guy who oversees everything. He doesn't pretend that. He comes in and he does his job. And yet he has the influence that he has and so on and so forth. But he does his job. Triple H leads us to believe like he's this grand visionary, but he's not. He's not. And not only is he not a visionary, he doesn't even have the reins to be able to do what he wants to do because his bosses keep him on a leash.
You could be so good at it 2 years ago, 2023 on fire, 2024 was great, that WrestleMania in Philly, and then now the product is what it is. And so what do you think? You know him better than me. Do you think that he is being forced to do certain things that he wouldn't have done when he was, off on the side doing his own thing with NXT?
No, Ariel.
Or do you think that maybe he lost his fastball, as they said?
First of all, he never had the fastball. He never had a fastball to throw to begin with. That's the first thing. Second of all, we're just coming to the realization that this guy stinks and that he stunk all along because the two years that Ariel just brought up, 2023, 2024, again, he was working on the back end of Vince's stuff. These were all Vince's angles. The bloodline, Sami Zayn being included in the bloodline, Cody Rhodes coming in. These were all Vince stories and Triple H was just playing with them until we got to this point. Remember Damage Control when he created that? Because that was objectively the first real Paul Levesque creation. Damage Control. Putting Bayley, Dakota Kai, and Io Shirai together. Io Sky. Fuck. Putting all three of those together in a stable and everyone was losing their mind. And immediately, outside of once they were done with their SummerSlam appearance, they all started losing and jobbing and looking just losing any kind of credibility or interest from the fans. Why? Because he stinks. He has always stunk and he continues to stink. It's not like, suddenly he lost his fastball. He never had one to throw to begin with. And a lot of us saw it. But now I feel like there's maybe not everyone, that's a sweeping statement. A lot of people, I feel, are seeing that Paul Levesque is a creative fraud. And that's why within 2 years, you quote unquote lose your fastball because you were playing with other people's toys. And then the audience got fed up of those toys. And you then had to come up with new ideas. But then you turn to AI or whatever the fuck, and everything stinks now.
If I had to guess, I would say that there are people who call things in and he has to make the best of what they want to play out on television and the PLEs.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And here's the thing. He should put his foot down and say, no, this doesn't work. Like the Pat McAfee stuff at WrestleMania this year. He should have just put his fucking foot down and say, Ari, no, I will book your boy later in a proper story, but this is ruining shit. And we are going to ruin our stars.
That's just my guess. And I base that on pattern recognition. And that's a thing that has become
pattern recognition. Look at this fancy. Look, he does psychology. He reads books.
Very prevalent, especially with like Gen Z. When it comes to entertainment, if you're creating something episodic with continuity.
You know what? This is boring. Okay. Because all we wanted to talk about in regards to Triple H is done. I don't want to hear Karrion Kross's thoughts on entertainment and his theories on what consists great entertainment. Anyway, thank you for indulging me. I thought this was a good way to start off the stream tonight. I really wanted to take a moment here to sort of dress down Triple H. I think it always puts us in a good mood. A long time ago, I made an affirmation here on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show and told everyone listening, this is a CM Punk podcast. Whenever CM Punk gets in the news, does stuff, we are going to talk about it because wrestling, no matter where you stand, when it comes to Phil Brooks, CM Punk, when he's in the news, makes wrestling so much more interesting. He really does. Ergo, with what happened earlier this week, the CM Punk rumors breaking containment, essentially, we get to talk about Phil Brooks, but not just Phil Brooks. Got a few things to chit chat about, because effectively there have been, I'm pretty sure if you're streaming, if you're listening to the stream right now, you're all somewhat aware of the rumors that started circulating, particularly yesterday. Yesterday being was it yesterday? No, the day before, on Tuesday, right? A lot of rumors started going around regarding CM Punk, and I say breaking containment because there's a lot of circles that had been talking about CM Punk, or at least things that we're talking about CM Punk, and things that were relayed in these rumors that maybe a lot of people didn't realize we were talking about CM Punk. A lot of these things sort of broke out of the group chats and whatnot, and the hush tones of journalists going, "Oh, we can't talk about this because we can't verify it." Well, Jacob decided to break containment on this because he's just fed up. He's just extremely fucking tired of the protection that some wrestlers and promotions benefit from journalists. But let's go from the start. I dropped the name Jacob, and you might not even know who he is, right? Jacob 2013, in fact, if we want to be very clear. He's a long time Figure 4 Weekly board poster. He's a Twitter personality, and I'm just laughing because I hate that. I hate saying that, but like that's kind of what it is. He's got his own Discord server, and he runs his own blog and whatnot. He describes himself as an amateur scoopster, right? So he's anonymous. If he has a journalism background, no one really knows about it. But despite it all, despite just him going on the internet, on Twitter, and dropping rumors and whatnot, he's widely, I should say, considered to be plugged into certain circles of the industry. He has contacts. He has been right about, he has a pretty good track record about being right for a few things. So, it's not one guy in the corner belting out rumors all the time from his corner of the internet and people going boo. And, this is a guy that a lot of people know, that a lot of journalists know, and he's connected. He has legitimate connections within the industry. Now, the rumors that he put out, and I want to make sure that we're clear here. These are all rumors. None of them are verified. They're all unverified rumors. The rumors that he put out, he released them. He on his Discord, he did a stage call in which he just went through it live with everyone, and then he wrote an article on his blog as well. And here are the rumors that he released in relation to CM Punk. This is what he put out. AJ Lee, Punk was allegedly pressuring AJ Lee into changing her finish at WrestleMania, the match against Becky Lynch. He was apparently telling her, well, you should do this, you should go talk to that one, and so on and so forth. And because of that, he got some heat from WWE Creative. I think Jacob said The Office, if I'm not mistaken. Shortly after WrestleMania, Punk allegedly was asked to take a pay cut, and guess what? He denied. Jacob notes that he never claimed that Punk accepted it. Just want to make sure, he declined the pay cut. And then allegedly again, Punk and TKO then entered renegotiations that apparently turned so sour that lawyers became involved. All allegedly, of course. Now, all of these are very plausible. That's the thing. I think a lot of people sort of gravitated to them and started pointing at them and going, oh my God, here he goes again. I mean, myself going around telling people Mount Brooks has erupted because they're all plausible. You know, screwing around with his wife's creative, getting heat because of it. And then maybe because of that heat, TKO went to him and said, you're going to take a pay cut. And they started to negotiate and it turned sour. Shockers. The negotiations went sour. Color me surprised. And then lawyers got involved. What, Phil Brooks getting lawyers involved? Litigious? CM Punk doing lawfare? What? All of these rumors, by the way, are against the backdrop of Punk saying on the Raw after Mania that he was not taking any vacations and that he was going to be there every week. And then suddenly, poof, he disappears from WWE TV for, how long has it been there? 2 months? Yeah, a little over 2 months. And no explanation, no storyline, no write-off. Like, he's not written off TV. It's not like the Hangman, you know, that they expressively wrote off television. Just Punk just like, poof, disappeared. And, you know, we mentioned it, we mentioned it here on stream a couple of times where people were like, oh, isn't this odd that Punk is not there? And I was just like shrugging and going, well, doesn't it happen more often than not that when a champion loses their title at WrestleMania, like a world championship, they take some time off after Mania, right? And then they come back later. Are we really all that surprised? But I was missing the context of him saying, no, I'm not going anywhere. I know Roman cut that kind of promo, but I didn't know Phil did at the time. So, of course, this is highly suspicious. Makes you wonder exactly what's going on. On top of the CM Punk rumors, Jacob in his stage and on his blog added a couple of other little tidbits, right? That aren't getting as much attention because the CM Punk stuff will get attention because it's fucking CM Punk. But nonetheless, interesting little things here. Like for instance, there is a separate yet unnamed talent described by one of Jacob's sources as being conceivably as someone who could conceivably be one of their world champions, being extremely frustrated, again, allegedly, I should say, extremely frustrated, and wants out of the company. Now, Jacob specifically said, look, I was asked not to name that person, and he says, I'm not quite sure what to think of it. I would have named them because, you know, whatever, mostly because this is someone who had an opportunity to jump to AEW, but instead chose to stay. So he was asked not to name it. He's not quite sure if it's true, but he was like, you know, I would love to name this person because I kind of think they're a jackass. They had the opportunity to leave, but they didn't, and now they want to leave. So, you know, it is what it is, right? The other rumor that he talked about was that he heard from multiple people that heard similar rumors also that Punk was slated to face and defeat Cody Rhodes for a title at SummerSlam. And the last one that he talked about, and it's a shame that it's being lost in all this CM Punk stuff, because this is the rumor that I want more clarification on. Like, it doesn't bother me if CM Punk is going around, you know, being CM Punk. That's par for the course. But the rumor that I really wanted more on is the idea that Disney streaming is allegedly unhappy with WWE's performance on ESPN Plus. Jacob said that WrestleMania was like the best performing PLE on the platform so far, which, let's not forget, started in September last year. But the gap between like the actual performance of the PLE versus the internal projections was described by a source as being, quote, the size of the Grand Canyon. This is the shit that I want to hear more about. This is what I want the journalists to roll up their sleeves on and say, well, what's this about? Get some fucking statements on the record. And now a lot of us greeted this CM Punk news with a tremendous amount of laughter, mirth, merriment. Because look, people like me told you multiple times that CM Punk having a meltdown was not a question of if, it was a question of when. And in fairness, he did it a lot. If it's true, if all of these allegations are indeed true, he had his meltdown way past anything that I thought way past any amount of time I thought he'd have on his hands for this. I thought he would have just broken ties very, very early on, but unfortunately, not. It might not be exactly it, right? Because the wrestling media then went over this, right, and had some responses. Now, before getting into the specific responses, it's worth flagging here that it's worth flagging this meta issue, okay? By acknowledging Jacob's rumors and investigating them and, putting out statements. I'm talking like people like Sean Ross Sapp, like Mike Johnson, who are the top names in the scoops business here. These legitimate outlets were implicitly rubber stamping the credibility of these rumors. Look, you go on any social media platform, whether it be Reddit or Facebook, and it is chock full of all sorts of phony baloney information that gets put out there by, garbage accounts, and none of these ever end up being debunked by Sean Ross Sapp or being addressed by Mike Johnson. Everyone just ignores them, right? But Jacob, for some reason, despite the fact that everyone's going, oh, it's reckless speculation, somehow these top names in our field have decided to pull up their sleeves and do something about it. Fightful built a podcast around it. PW Insider went to its sources and posted about it. Even the Observer, right, front page, ran with it and then pulled it down and put up another edited version that mentioned that it was reckless speculation and whatnot, right? So that strongly implies that many people in the media already knew something was off. They weren't just reacting to a random Twitter account. They were reacting to a story they'd likely been sitting on or knew about or heard about or had been talking about it. And Jacob's public drop gave them the cover to finally move on it. That's essentially it. Fightful Select, like I said, did a full podcast centered on the unverified rumors. Jacob, he in his blog post, he framed it positively, saying, what they did should be the norm, should become the norm, and that WWE should be challenged more. Fightful said that they subsequently reached out to dozens of WWE sources, and then they ended up publishing their findings. We'll talk about those in a second. Mike Johnson spoke to a trusted WWE source, and that source compared the rumors to the old Saudi Arabia bought WWE stories, right? Essentially meaning that they were absolutely baseless. His source noted that Punk has new merch in production and summer appearances planned as well, but could not explain why he was off television. Johnson even later posted a public statement venting his frustration with the broader situation. It's worth noting that Johnson, because this is absolutely a thing, Mike Johnson has a well-documented reputation for running WWE adjacent content with minimal filtering. Sometimes, just cut and pasting press release language wholesale, which raises fair questions about how independently his sources are actually operating. Interestingly enough, I don't think, unless it's happened within the past couple of hours, Dave Meltzer has no, I don't think he himself has commented on this yet. I'm pretty sure tomorrow in the Observer we're going to get something though. Yeah, the vent post was really weird. Let me read the vent post because it gives me a very strange vibe. This is the post that Mike Johnson put out following all of this after he had written a little blurb on PW Insider saying, you know, that essentially his source had said that this is like the Saudi Arabia bought us tales. Okay. He posted this much later on, I believe on Facebook, because of course, right? The amount of pro wrestling stupidity lately is at a level so bad that even for me, I'm ready to tap. Is it now? This is the level of stupidity? Because brother, I don't think it's that stupid. Anyway, I have never seen such a stream of utter trash as people just churn out shit on social media platforms. Then when you ignore it, readers ask why you were ignoring something that is complete trash. And if you do address it, the responses are, you must be protecting someone. I feel very, very old and almost as if I am handicapped at doing my job because I actually have morals, attempt to confirm my stories, and actually try to have respectful relationships with the subjects I report about. That's something he should have left out, frankly, as opposed to just spewing trash and trying to score clout and traffic on monetized social media sites that have free reign to do whatever they want to make to do whatever they want to make their pennies. All of it makes me shake my head. To be clear, Jacob first announced all of these rumors on his Discord, which I can guarantee is not monetized. He made a live chat there, and that was it. And then took to his blog spot. His blog is on Blogspot. Took to that and wrote his article there. A blog that is not running ads. He's not making any money off. I don't even think he has a blue check mark. So whatever Johnson is talking about here is a little preposterous. Look, I can understand his frustration about the push-pull that he gets. I get that it's real. But the thing here is, and this is exactly what Jacob wanted. Sounds like I'm saying Jacob, right? But it's Jacob. The thing that Jacob wanted was for journalists to be more proactive than this. More proactive before the speculation starts. Ask the questions when you hear about these rumors. Don't fall on a sword saying, I was told I couldn't run it, so on and so on. Ask the questions. Report whenever you get an answer, or report that you didn't get an answer. You know, silence is still a response. It's a decision to not respond, and that can also speak very loudly. But you just let things wait and fester, and then this kind of stuff happens, where you have one guy who's like fucking fed up and lays it all out there. And I'm going to tell you, him saying, I try to have respectful relationships with the subjects I report about, I don't think he should have said that. I don't think he should have said that. Do you think Phil Mushnick back in the 90s had a respectful relationship with Vince McMahon? No. Do you think Bob Costas had a respectful relationship with Vince McMahon? No. A journalist's job is not to coddle the people that you are covering. Your job is to get the truth. Your job is to work to the truth. Now, what did the reporting actually find, right? Because Fightful did work on it. It did reach out to some of to about a dozen contacts, right? So I've got the list here. This is what Fightful and their reporting specifically debunked or addressed, okay? First and foremost, Fightful reached out again to their dozens of contacts, contacts, I should say. And none of whom, this is what Sean Ross Sapp said, none of whom had heard any truth to the claims that Punk was asked to take a pay cut or was attempting to get out of his deal. Fair. The reports that suggested that Punk was upset about the booking and treatment of AJ Lee at WrestleMania were also apparently not true. Internal sources scoffed at the thought of it, noting that Lee's brief run was executed exactly as planned from day one with no changes or friction. The speculation that Punk was sent home or disciplined for altercations with fans at WrestleMania was flat out denied. Signs point to CM Punk returning to television in July, potentially targeting the July 6th episode of Raw at the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois. WrestleVotes, who is absolutely a bastion of 100% exact reporting and definitely not one of these, and especially does not deal in vagaries, has since reported that July 6th is indeed the target for his return, his being CM Punk. And it was even reported like last month, right? Like False Finish, the new website that has come out of the split in the bodyslam.net people, right? Corey Hayes, I think. Is it Corey Hayes or Corey Brennan? I get those two confused. Look, it doesn't matter. False Finish reported that Punk's absence following WrestleMania 42 was due to a shift in creative plans. Specifically, Gunther moving to SmackDown and Jacob Fatu moving to Raw disrupted whatever they had lined up for Punk, leaving him without a clear role in the short term. And that could be a reason to send him home. This is all that was dug back up, right? So again, a lot of denials, a lot of no, this didn't happen or whatever, right? But despite all of the reporting here, despite it all, Fightful, PW Insider, False Finish, no sources could explain why CM Punk was off TV in the first place. And everyone finds that weird. They will deny everything. No, he wasn't messing around with AJ Lee's creative. No, he wasn't sent home on disciplinary actions, right? PW Insider even said, the contract situation is nonsense. It doesn't exist. There's no conflict, but no one can say why he was kept off of television. So again, we're still left with the main question not answered. Everything was addressed. No, this is a lie. This is a lie. This is a lie. Okay. So why was he kicked off of television? That's something that you can't respond with a yes or no answer or it's a lie, it's a truth. You have to formulate an answer, and they didn't get anything. And here's the other thing. Punk coming back, because a lot of people are like, see, he's coming back in July, and they're making merch for him. This has all been a bunch of hooey. It's all been nonsense. Look, everything is fine, right? He's not upset with anyone. He's coming back. I don't see how CM Punk being upset and CM Punk being on television are mutually exclusive. I don't see how those two are, how one is proof of the other. Punk coming back doesn't mean there wasn't also a dispute running concurrently. If they shuffled the deck creatively for him and he didn't care for it, and then on top of that, a contract argument happened, he could absolutely say, you know what, keep me off TV while we fix this, right? So the debunking that happened here doesn't fully close the door on uglier versions of events. Because there's nothing here that says this is the reason why he was off television. And the reason that they're not talking about it, that no one got that information out of WWE, is, to me, again, a signal that something is indeed up. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, did they push enough? Sean Ross Sapp should have pushed his sources. Maybe he did. And maybe they just declined to answer. But you know what they should do then? If they did ask the question, what took Punk off of television? And if the source said no comment, then you add that in your report. Because that's a meaningful response. So it's very interesting. And it's very interesting that these situations where journalists, sort of decided to respond to all of this, to make a thing out of it, all happened because one guy decided to leak a bunch of unverified rumors, right? And one thing that we need to make clear here about Jacob and his motivations in this situation, right? He started his space, his Discord stage. And if you're wondering, yes, I was there. He started straight up by saying, look, that he's already fed up about the WWE pay cut story being broadly underreported. Because to him, and he's right, and it's something that we've talked about here, active performers accepting pay cuts of up to 50% at a company publicly boasting fiscal dominance should not have the media sitting on it out of defense to their sources. Oh, you can't run with this, you can't run with this. And no, like, this is a story of public interest. Jacob he also mentioned that he'd get do not run instructions from multiple sources on WWE negative rumors. And he's fed up of it. He's had it up to here. And his core argument ultimately is this: response, and you'll see there's a certain theme to it, a theme here on the show. Responsible journalism has legitimate reasons to stay quiet, okay? Like, if it's situations that could lead to, imminent death, this is what he wrote here: imminent death, mental health crisis, or legal jeopardy, right? But protecting WWE talent from embarrassing contract rumors is not one of them. That's not one of these reasons that should keep responsible journalism to stay quiet. He's specifically frustrated that these stories tend to surface years later, like in softball interviews, where the talent can be guarded and careful and, maybe don't have as close ties with the promotion anymore. And rather than dealing with them in real time, when this is when the accountability matters now. So if we're talking about $1 billion company, which is TKO, asking its fighters to take 50% pay cut, and we're not over reporting it, we're not talking about who's taking the cuts, who's on the chopping block and whatnot. If we're not making this a story, this is stuff that can have implications all throughout professional wrestling for years. This could be a situation that can change dramatically for pro wrestlers moving forward because everyone decided to stay fucking silent about it, decided to shut up about it. And there's this thing where it's like, where fans, a lot of fans are like, well, we have to respect their privacy. We need to respect their privacy. This is such a pro wrestling thing, and it's such a weird thing because in sports, contract details are part of the press conferences. They just drop them. Everyone knows everyone's contract length and amount. Like, it's just like common knowledge. What parameters your team is working in, how much they're paying, and so on and so forth. And that helps you understand what kind of state your team is in. Are they making good decisions? Are they making bad decisions? So on and so forth. Why is it that money in pro wrestling is this guarded thing that no one can talk about? Why? Quite frankly, I don't know if there's a good reason. And definitely protecting their privacy is not one of those. It's not one of those reasons. All of these people very knowingly have decided to become public figures, and this is the type of scrutiny that they go under, especially while employed by a publicly traded company. There should not be walls of secrets. There should be more transparency. There should be more talk about it. So if the market leader is deciding that the value of a professional wrestler is 50% less than it was last year moving forward, outside of a select couple of people, of course, but if they think that the value of a pro wrestler is worth 50% less now moving forward than it was just like 365 days ago, That's problematic for all of the industry. Because if you think your favorite pro wrestlers are not making enough money or whatever, like, you know, the contracts are a little rough and whatnot, it gets worse if the market leader is laying new rules about that, laying down new rules. And these are things that should be exposed, should be discussed, should be talked about. We should all be cognizant of this because this has real world implications on the livelihoods of pro wrestlers. It is public interest. So I don't know why there's so much fucking cloak and dagger around this stuff. I kind of do. To a degree, but I might be jumping ahead here. I just want to come back to Jacob's motivations here, you know, where he's, you know, like he and I sort of agree on the same level that, you know, we don't need to afford grace to professional wrestlers, particularly when it comes to their contracts and their salaries. It doesn't matter. And he specifically zeroes in on CM Punk, saying that this guy particularly doesn't deserve any grace given his history, right? You know, attacking a fan on camera, the AEW chaos, you know, abandoning his publicly stated convictions, right? Voice of the voiceless and all of that to become whatever he is today. And I have a tendency to agree with him. I also have a tendency to agree with him. Broader WWE context that he cited in his blog post as well, he cited that as evidence that the absence of CM Punk doesn't pass the sniff test, right? Because you've got the declining quality of pay-per-views. You've got LA Knight recently, right, who's been going on interviews and airing grievances publicly. You've got the Road Dogg saying that WWE wasn't fun anymore and saying TKO is just too greedy. Ariel Helwani called the promotion soulless. The Disney streaming unhappiness. Like, you know, all of this context here just serves to add more credence to these rumblings that are going on behind the scenes and that people are picking up on, like Jacob. So he explicitly said this was his motivation. His explicit motivation was to force wrestling media like PW Insider, like Fightful, and, you know, their ilk, to go ask WWE questions about it on record, confirmed or denied. That's what he wanted to do. That's what he wanted to see happen. And 24 hours later, that's what happened. And Mike Johnson had a very bad evening and was almost ready to tap out because of it, because he had to run reports on things that he'd heard and probably had been sworn to silence and didn't want to burn his sources or whatever. This type of situation, right? This type of situation happens for a couple of reasons. I think one of the reasons is because we don't have enough, like, credentialed journalists, I guess would be the term. Because it is what it is, right? We don't have a lot of those. We have a lot of people who pretend. We have a lot of people who make believe that they're journalists just because they can get scoops and whatnot. But not a lot of people actually wear the journalist badge with pride, right? And the other issue, which is very significant, is that the silence from WWE helps create the problem. Punk said he wouldn't go on vacation, and then he vanishes for no weeks without explanation. No storyline, no write-off. How does that happen? How does one of your tippy top stars just disappear from television and not get an explanation? You know, it's as if you know, back in the 90s, because these are my references. Back in the 90s in the NFL, you know, Joe Montana all of a sudden gets pulled. He just disappears. He's not even on, you know, he's not QB1. He's not even QB2. He's just disappeared off the face of the earth. And the 49ers have nothing to say about it. The 49ers just completely no-sell any questions that they get. It doesn't make sense. And WWE is $1 billion company. Publicly traded. These are public interest stories. We have to stop pretending that these superstars who make millions of dollars are these fragile little things that need protecting from the the peering eye of the public. There are moments that you do that you do pull back, but on stuff like this, because look, one of the most persistent structural problems that exists even today is that pro wrestling still operates like kayfabe never died, even though everyone knows it's done, right? When a story breaks about a talent, the common response is for that talent oftentimes, and look, I've talked about this, it's one of my king pet peeves. The talent will like quote tweet it on Twitter and say that's not the whole story or wrong or something like that, but then say absolutely nothing else. Then journalists will reach out and say, okay, well, correct the record. What did I get wrong? And then they say jack shit, or they'll say, oh, the dirt sheet, we'll get your facts straight. Okay, align the facts for me. But no, they'll provide no clarification, no correction, just a public denial with no substance behind it. The fix, in my opinion, is obvious, but never happens. Wrestlers need to go on record with journalists. That's all. If a talent has a version of events they want out there to rectify whatever other schmutz is happening, they can call a reporter. They can text. They have the numbers. And they put it on the record. They agreed to speak on the record. That's pretty much how it works everywhere else. Instead, wrestling defaults to cloak and dagger, a reflexive omerta baked so deep into the culture that it persists even today when kayfabe hasn't been a real protective concept for decades. Britt Baker is another excellent example. Britt Baker is a tremendous example. Tony Khan, when asked about her prolonged, and just to make sure that I'm not just whamming on WWE here, that AEW has its own faults here. Tony Khan, whenever he's asked about her prolonged absence, he repeatedly gives the same boilerplate response, the same variant of, oh, we love Britt and we hope to have her back on TV soon. And then nothing. You hear jack shit about it, right? Nobody pushes forward. Nobody digs. And yet, when Britt was active, stories about her circulated freely and liberally in industry circles, right? How many times have you heard someone say, I heard a story about Britt Baker and she did this shitty thing and she said this shitty thing and whatnot. And somehow her being off of television, off the road and whatnot, now no one talks about her. The idea that no one currently has anything to say strains credulity. This silence isn't the absence of story. It's the absence of anyone willing to report on it. And that silence is exactly what makes the rampant speculation inevitable. And I'm glad Chad just brought this up because I wanted to bring it up. Keith Lee is an excellent example as well, where something's going on, he's got health issues, and the stories are plentiful behind the scenes. So much chatter about Keith Lee and what he's doing next and whatnot. And then last week that Fightful reported, oh, we've got an update on Keith Lee, and everyone just came alive. Oh, hopefully he's coming back and whatnot. And the report was, oh, well, there was creative that a few months ago, there was creative that was discussed for him, but it never materialized. And I'm like, oh, this is such nothing. Like, this is nothing. I can't believe that this is actually something we decided to run with. What was the creative? How long? What was the creative? Who turned it down? Or was it even proposed to Keith Lee? Or did you just say? Did it just die? Did it just die in a meeting, in a production meeting? Or was it presented to Keith Lee? Did Keith Lee feel good about it? Did he shoot it down? Did Tony Khan shoot it down? What the fuck is wrong with Keith Lee to begin with? You know, those types of things. But a story about, hey, so yeah, we got a big update on Keith Lee a couple of months ago. creative was thought up for him and it never materialized. What are we even doing? That's so crazy. That's nothing. It's just a bunch of nothing. Now I want to make sure that I make myself super clear here, because I don't want to give the impression I'm just bashing for bashing's sake. Because I'm aware enough that I understand that making money off of wrestling scoops these days is a little tough. It's a little rough, right? And you have to go with what you got to get the subscriptions and whatnot. And the scoops game is a rough one. So I'm not outright blaming. I'm not shaming. It is what it is type of situation. I just look at the report and I go, in a vacuum, I'm like, this is nothing. This is absolutely nothing. But then let's say you step back and you're like, well, I understand why these types of things happen and why journalists sometimes might be a little gun shy on reporting things because they want to maintain these relationships that give them these meager scoops, because if the scoops run out, you're fresh out of luck. There's a lot of stuff that can explain why wrestling reporters are gun shy, and I think there's a deep fear of losing access. And both in the literal sense of access journalism and others just in the sense of losing access to their contacts. And it's a problem, frankly, that extends beyond wrestling and sports. It goes into entertainment journalism broadly. Wrestling reporters operate in an environment where their ability to do their jobs depends on maintaining relationships with PR officials, with company communications teams, with talent, and the various back channel sources that feed the news industry, right? Report something that a company doesn't like, and those relationships can evaporate. And we've seen it. We've seen it with what WWE can do. They did it with John Pollock. They did it with Andreas Hales, excuse me. No relation. You lose access to press releases, to events and talent interviews, and you're suddenly operating without the infrastructure that made your job viable in the first place. And that's a genuinely precarious position, and it creates an incentive structure where not asking the uncomfortable questions is often the professionally rational choice, even when the uncomfortable question is obviously worth asking. Why is it that Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch can do media tours and no one asks them about Vince, no one asks them about Janelle Grant, no one asks them about the 50% cuts? How come they never get asked that? There are multiple reasons for that. And this creates an effect. This creates a chilling effect that's compounded by the fan dynamic on top of that. Because wrestling fans approach wrestling media from a default position of mistrust and confrontation. Dave Meltzer gets accused of making stuff up out of thin air every day. Sean does too. Sean Ross Sapp, So anyone who has reported news has been called a liar at some point, right? And oftentimes if a story turns out to be wrong, which is, a thing that does happen, wrestling fans won't allow for the reality of the circumstances to change. They'll call it fabrication. So the result is that reporters become scared of being wrong, scared of burning sources, and scared of their audience. And then you're like, oh my God. So how does this work then, right? How can we get a media that works if we're afraid of everything? If the reporters are just afraid of everything? And there's a broader context to this that the podcast conversation that we're having right now gestures towards, and that is pro wrestling is a $1 billion industry that has historically operated with near total impunity because mainstream culture doesn't take pro wrestling seriously. Oh, it's just pro wrestling poo-poo, right? And this goes back decades. This is not new. The steroid trial of the 90s, Vince coming out with the collar, it all turned into a circus. No one took this seriously. The early indications of Vince McMahon's alleged misconduct that have since exploded into federal charges and the Janelle Grant's lawsuit and whatnot, they've been circulating in wrestling circles for years before anyone outside of the bubble took them seriously. WWE's business practices have been constantly flagged as legally and ethically suspect, and yet the scrutiny applied to them is a fraction of what a comparable entertainment or sports entity could face. The reason why it's like this is simple and depressing. Pro wrestling is still broadly perceived as lowbrow entertainment for marks. Just go hang around on Blue Sky on AEW nights and you'll see exactly what kind of responses happen there. Nobody with institutional media power has historically cared enough to treat it like the serious business it actually is. One where significant money flows, where workers can be exploited, where scandals can fester for years without any consequence, and where the companies involved have spent decades perfecting the art of controlling the narrative and stonewalling anyone who asks the wrong questions. Jacob deciding to go public with unverified rumors and the media scrambling to respond within 24 hours is a small but meaningful example of what happens when someone refuses to treat the wrestling industry's information blackout like the natural order of things. So, bottom line, you and I can have a very hefty discussion in regards to whether or not Jacob's methods are good or not. That's debatable. His anonymous status, his information being entirely unverified, absolutely. We can dive into that and have a good discussion around it. But he achieved exactly what he set out to do. Legitimate wrestling, dug in, debunked significant portions, confirmed basic facts, like CM Punk returning and the merch and all that, and got WWE sources on record. Even if they're denying, we've got them on the record denying. But none of this would have happened without Jacob's Discord stage and his post on Blogspot. It's just as simple as that. This is a business that generates billions of dollars a year, that comes after your municipal taxes when they come to your town. You are absolutely entitled to know what the fuck is going on, why and how this company is run. You are absolutely 100% entitled to that. Otherwise, but this is WWE in 2026. You're entitled to that. We don't have to be protecting these people. We don't have to shield billion-dollar companies, folks, because they will not shield you. How many times have we talked about here on this show how it's incomprehensible to me why people will stick up for WWE, a billion-dollar company, even if you leave out all of the shady shit, all of the suspect stuff, even if you leave all of that out, it is a billion-dollar publicly traded company. It does not need you sticking up for it. It is not on your side. It is on the side of making money, and it will milk you dry before it says anything nice, before it ever says anything nice about you. We don't have to protect these companies or the people that work for them. Again, all these pro wrestlers, a lot of them I really like, but they all made a choice to work there and to continue to work there. That's just how it goes. So what I'm hoping is that Jacob gets pissed enough and he keeps leaking more, and the journalists have to do their jobs more, and they have to make people uncomfortable because wrestling journalism, I was going to say, but any journalism should not be comfortable. New Japan Pro Wrestling Dominion in Osaka-Jo Hall took place on June 14, 2026, and we're going to review it. We're going to review this show, which is generally regarded as being the second biggest show of the year for New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I would argue that they tried. They put their best foot forward anyway to provide matches that all felt like they had some kind of consequence, that they were of consequence is what I'm trying to say, that they were all matches of consequence, all mostly singles matches. We didn't fill up the undercard with tag team matches and 6-man matches and just the type of throwaway stuff that you'd see on just on your run-of-the-mill Road 2 show. I guess the approach they took here was extremely different than what they did for Wrestling Dontaku this year on both nights, which are two shows that I really ultimately ended up not caring about. Did I care about this show? Well, I think this was a good yet unremarkable show, despite the fact that every championship on this show that was put on the line changed hands. We have new champions up and down the card, and you would think, oh my God, Warren, the changing of the guard and all these great things, and what a bunch of exciting matches that must have ensued. But you're like, nah, sure, I guess, but not really also. I thought the matches were fine. They were good. A lot of them were great. A lot of, I have really one match that I would consider to be a 4-star match on this show. But overall, I can't say that this was a bad show. It was just like unremarkable. It kind of zipped by. I didn't feel insulted or overwhelmed or underwhelmed, I should say, even angry to some degree, like I did with Wrestling Dontaku. It's a show that sort of happened. Now, you'd think that with all the changes that occurred on this show, in regards to championships changing hands, we'd be all abuzz and excited for the new possibilities moving forward. But I can appreciate New Japan trying something out, putting its best foot forward, but I am still very much in a spot where I am keeping them at arm's length. And I am not convinced that any decision was made here is going to be followed up with this exciting new direction for the company. I'm still looking for it. I will give New Japan credit though, and this is important. I will give them credit because they are trying things out. They are experimenting. We're not sitting down. We're surrounding ourselves with blinders and just going full steam ahead on one thing. We're trying stuff out. We're flip-flopping. We're not flip-flopping is not the right word. We're experimenting. We're doing, as we say in marketing, come to think of it, we're doing some A/B testing here, and we're going to see what sticks. And frankly, I don't have a problem with that. I much prefer things. I would much prefer things to feel dynamic than feel stagnant and stale, if that makes sense. And I'm pretty sure it does. So, look, let's start by talking about the attendance for the show. 6,890 people were in attendance for the show, reportedly, which is up from last year, the 2025 show, which had 6,525 people show up. So we're at 365-ish, 360, 370. Yeah, that'd be right. That would be right. Yes, my poor math brain is telling me, yes, Warren, you are correct on this one with a certain amount of certainty. 365 people more than last year, which is good. You always want to see improvements. So, if anything, is this an indication that the roster is a little more interesting? Are people more into the main event scene? Well, they're definitely doing something right, because the gap between 2024 and 2025 was a lot wider. In 2024, there were 7,254 people who showed up. Like that's been the peak of the past couple of years at the very least. Look, in the 2024 show, just to give you an idea, the 2024 show was main evented by El Desperado and Taiji Ishimori, which was the finals of the Best of Super Juniors that year, and a great match on top of that. We also had the semi-infamous lumberjack match between Jon Moxley and Evil for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. And then we had Shingo and Hanare go to the double countout back from back in that exact period, right? Because that's exactly when it happened. It's exactly what do you mean back when it happened? Yes, that's the day it happened. That's exactly when it happened, Warren. So that was the business end of the show in 2024 that drew the biggest peak in attendance of the past 4 years, easily in 2023, 7,040 people showed up. Then in 2025, 6,500 people show up. And in 2025, the business end of that show was Hiroki Goto versus Shingo for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. We also had Gabe Kidd versus Yota Tsuji, which was a tremendous match. That was for the global heavyweight title. And there was also the dog collar death match between the House of Torture and the War Dogs. So that was the composition of the business end of the card for last year's last year's Dominion show. So it's an increase. It's an increase from last year, and we're eking ever so closer to recent peaks. I mean, 2 years ago is still a fairly recent. Is still fairly recent. So 2 years ago we were doing 7,200 in the building. We might be on our way to do that some more. Look, at the very least, New Japan is trying stuff out. They are making things. They're attempting to make things different. You can only look. I say you, but I'm going to say me. I can only support promotions trying things out, seeing what sticks. But at the very least, if you see something's not sticking, well, then you have to pivot and try something else. And there's a couple of things here we're going to talk about as well, where we're going to. There's a couple of things here that we're also going to talk about in regards to pivoting and trying stuff out as we go along. But let's get right to it. Let's jump right into to the main event. I think that's what we'll do. We'll do the main event and work our way in reverse chronological order, if you're okay with that, where Yota Tsuji defeated Callum Newman to become, once again, IWGP Heavyweight Champion. He is a two-time champion now. I think this is the best match from the card. I think it was high level, very high level, quality, excellent stuff. The main event delivered exactly what you'd expect from this type of show. To a degree where you'd be like, maybe even a little more. But the work was extremely good. The body part work here was great. Newman targeting the lower back. And Tsuji's midsection also taking sustained damage from his double stomp, from Newman's double stomps and so on and so forth. And there were a couple of very big spots here on this show, on this match, I should say. The cannonball senton off the entrance ramp to the floor was absolutely phenomenal, and the Excalibur, like the double stomp thing, not the head broadcast guy over there in AEW. Callum Newman doing the double stomp off the apron onto Tsuji through a table, and the table doesn't break, all that big spot. I thought that was pretty fantastic. And Tsuji felt like he was in a mood to mix things up, to try some new things. The theme song, of course, right? That's the first thing, where it's like, a lot of people I think were taken aback. Personally, I think anything else than what he previously had is an upgrade. I thought his previous theme wasn't very good. Is this one the theme that we were looking for? I think it's going to grow on me. Like anything new, especially when it's a complete departure from what we knew previously. I think when it comes to new things, humans have a tendency to just go, "Ooh," we're a little taken aback because we're expecting something, and something, when that something doesn't happen and we get whatever we receive in lieu of that thing disappearing is just completely different. I think, a lot of us sort of jump back, and I think personally, I think it's going to grow on me. I don't think it's a terrible song. I've seen some vehement responses to it. I don't care if I don't care if the recording artist is some well-known quantity in Japan, and this is like, oh wow, that's a big deal. I don't give a shit. Like that doesn't factor into it for me outside of the business aspect of it, where if they're signing off the rights if they're signing the rights to a popular known song in Japan to be Yota Tsuji's theme song, that's pretty significant, like that's an interesting business move. But it doesn't make it better. It doesn't make it better if she's a known recording artist or not. It doesn't make it better. It doesn't make it worse for me. It's just like, who cares? I don't give a shit. She could be like the most underground act, and if I like the song, I like the song. Now, do I like the song? I don't know. It's not quite my speed, but I think it can work as a theme. I think it's going to grow on me. That's the thing. It's going to grow on me, and we're going to be hearing this song in the context of main events, big time matches. I think there's going to be a psychological thing that's going to happen. Everyone who's like vehement and going, bring back the old thing. Don't bring back the old theme. This is better than the old theme. It is a clear upgrade on every level than the other theme that he had with the dinosaurs and the planets exploding or whatever the fuck, the volcanoes, the creation of life, the Paleolithic era. I didn't pronounce that right. You know what I'm talking about. I just didn't want to say Jurassic because it's so cliche. Just wanted to do something different, break out of the norm instead of just saying Jurassic. But then I realized I probably didn't pronounce the word I was trying to use correctly. So, maybe I should have just stuck to the cliche and not sound like a fool. Anyway, Tsuji also seems to have added a little twist, literally, to the Gene Blaster. That sort of caught me off guard, and I think it caught commentary off guard as well, where he does the Gene Blaster, but he spins the dude around now, instead of it being just a spear. And I applaud that. And I think, look, we know why they started doing the spear with Tsuji. He's an American football player. That's what he used to do in college at the very least, right? So, he's always going to do a spear, right? He's going to because he's a former American football player. And you're like, oh my God, okay. Yes, we get it. But longtime listeners will know that I've talked a lot about how Yota Tsuji has slowly grown into his main event role, right? Yeah, just in his role period, where for a time I would have compared Yota Tsuji to Shinsuke Nakamura, where I was like, okay, well, this guy has great presence. He has incredible charisma. He's got a good connection to the crowd. I think he's going to be a vibes guy, because I never saw like the big match come out of Yota Tsuji. I've never seen him like go into a main event and be like, okay, this is mine now, and we're going to make a great match here, and this is, it's my spot, follow my lead type of thing. I never saw that kind of high-level athletic main event of a New Japan show out of Yota Tsuji for a long while, which is why, I started to accept the fact that he was a vibes guy. Then they, last year they started pushing him in the G1 specifically, leading to his big main event win at the Tokyo Dome. Well, main event. Well, the big world championship win at the Tokyo Dome at the very least. And I would mention oftentimes how I felt like his crowd connection was improving, how he was emoting more with the crowd, how he was creating the connection where he was making it happen. And I think this is still part of this transformation, this evolution of Yota Tsuji from the guy coming in with the big smile who had, the size and, the aura, to use a tired word, coming in, captivating everyone, but just sort of floundering in the same space. And it feels like the minute that he was given the opportunity to shine, to take a spot, he just went all in and said, okay, I'm going to go completely in on it. And I think that changing his finisher from being just a spear to being a spinny spear, I think that's a great idea, because there's a lot of people who use spears in pro wrestling, and it's they're like, I also think throughout all this stuttering, I also think that spears are also perceived as a bit of a transitional move, not as much as a match finisher, as a big time impact move. So I'm kind of, I'm very receptive to what's going on here with him, to him coming across as maybe, adding a little sauce to this spear to make it his own. Or it might just be like a fluke. Something happened in the match. Well, we do know something happened in the match, and he was just trying to protect Callum, But if that was the case, sometimes great finishers are developed out of accidents, out of happenstance in the ring. This could be one of these circumstances where he did the spin move to sort of protect Callum, when in reality, when in reality, when you look at it, you're like, oh, this is cool. Maybe he should keep that. Maybe this is his new finisher, and maybe he should use that moving further on. But I think he did an excellent job. Now, I just mentioned it. We were protecting Callum Newman and so on. He was injured in this match. The thing that I've been hearing is that his shoulder popped as he was wrestling. I think the consensus is that he hurt himself. Well, I mean, it's not just the consensus. It was pretty blatantly obvious that he hurt himself on the belly-to-belly throw into the turnbuckles that Tsuji did. And you could see Callum Newman was immediately clasping it, favoring it. The referee was there checking on him quite a bit. They decided to continue the match. Look, from what I've heard, he's going to get that looked after very, very soon this week, just to make sure everything is hunky dory. But he was legitimately injured in the match. And look, was Callum supposed to retain, and did they call an audible and then put the belt back on Tsuji? Because one of the things you can argue here is, oh, we're doing a little hot potatoing here. Title's changing hands. The title has changed hands 3 times within 6 months. What the hell is going on, type of thing, right? Especially when it comes to New Japan, which, in recent memory, right, has a tendency to, well, at least we all sort of remember the great reigns, and they're all kind of longish, but this is not unusual behavior for New Japan to sort of, use the world title as a bit of a rocket ship, or I should say the IWGP heavyweight title as a sort of a rocket ship for someone to get elevated into another lane in the company. So it's not necessarily out of the ordinary. Personally, like, on top of it all, I'm all for a dynamic main event scene. Not like I think, particularly us here in North America, I think a lot of specifically like Canada, United States, to be very clear, I think we've been very poisoned in regards to world championship runs, and that their significance comes with length. Right. I think that's something that has poisoned us quite a bit in recent years for a number of reasons. A long laundry list of reasons, I would say. I don't necessarily think it's for the best. I don't think it's a good thing that great world title runs equate automatically to long world title runs, because we've had the examples that those aren't necessarily the case. and specifically in the United States with AEW, the month-long reign of Darby Allin should go to prove that a great title run doesn't have to extend over, 700 plus days. You have exactly, like, currently running right now, you have the two sides of the argument in regards to whether or not length is the determining factor or the main determining factor as to whether a title run was successful or not. Because like I said, you had Darby Allin, who had his world championship run last a month and just over-delivered every week, sometimes 2 times a week, with excellent top tier matches every time. And that lasted a month, and it's a reign that people are going to talk about for years. So people are going to remember it fondly, and it elevated Darby in the meantime. Whereas within the same, well, not company, but the same universe, you have Athena, who is like 7 million years into her championship reign and has done nothing. Like, no one cares about it. No one talks about it because the inevitable has happened. She's run out of opponents. Nobody cares anymore. Stuff is just uninteresting. And ultimately, it is not helping Athena moving forward because the title reign has gotten, well, a little cringe at this point. Not every title reign can be Kazuchika Okada. And not every title has, as far as quality goes, right? And not every title reign has to be as long as Kazuchika Okada either, or Athena, or Roman Reigns, or Bruno. Insert long, ridiculously ridiculously long title reign here, and it'll still be the same basic precept, where it's, you don't need for these reigns to go on so long. So I don't have a problem. If anything, like this title run has 100%, even if it was short, and even if Callum Newman only had one defense, this title run helped not only elevate him, but make him. It turned him into something completely different than what we had known of him previously. He decided to embrace a heel role, go into it, establish much more confidence for himself, exuding a presence that was not there previously. And this is all done with the world title. Look, it goes like that sometimes, right? Sometimes the guy makes the title, sometimes the title makes the guy. And in this circumstance, Callum Newman winning the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, IWGP Heavyweight Championship, Warren, you've been hoping for this moment for years, and now they've conditioned you into saying World Championship all the time, but now you don't have to. You got to let it go, brother. You got to let it go. His winning the title basically transformed him. So if anything, I don't think this is, it's too early to say if this was unsuccessful or not. We are going to see, this is going to something that's going to have to take a few years to see, or maybe we'll see it in just a couple of months too, to see just how much this truly did elevate Callum Newman. Will he be still in that upper crust? Will he be able to sniff the title once again? Will he be able to hold the top title once again? Right? That it might just be a one and done who knows? But they wanted to make something out of Callum Newman. I think it was successful, and I think it only grows from this point on. I would not say that this was an unsuccessful attempt. Compare this to Sonata's run. I think the overall consensus is that the Sonata run didn't work out, and a lot of people will outright call it a failure. I'll put it in the column of things that didn't work out the way you anticipated. Let's put it that way. But that's because Sonata had multiple defenses. He main evented multiple matches. He main evented Tokyo Dome on top of that. And nothing was captivating the imagination. There weren't any sellout. The Tokyo Dome didn't sell out. There wasn't like this great turn in business. And they tried with him. They tried all throughout the G1 that year. They tried to really get him over as the next guy, and it just didn't catch on. Now, as for Callum, short reign, 70 some days. They'll try this again. I am convinced they are going to keep him up on that level. They want to create a rivalry with him and Yota Tsuji. It feels like they want to create rivalries with everyone versus Yota Tsuji at this point, but nonetheless, that's what they want to do here, and we'll revisit this. And it just might end up, we might end up getting, better, bigger, stronger, faster, more excellent matches as both guys continue to appropriate the role that was given to them by the company. We'll see. There's a lot of this that's wishful thinking. I will freely admit to that, knowing full well that I don't entirely trust the booking of New Japan Pro Wrestling. But I enjoyed this match tremendously. I thought it was very good. Look, the finish, I thought it was very good. Tsuji catches Newman's Oscutter attempt with a spear, just anti-airs him, and then immediately transitions into that spinning spear gene blaster, or whatever it is. So there you go. It gets the 3 count, new champion. But we'll keep an eye on Callum Newman, who is hurt, and hopefully it's nothing too serious, and he'll be able to take part in the G1, which we will talk about in a little bit. I would give this match 4 stars. Yeah, let's give this match 4 stars. I think it was excellent. I thought the work between these two guys was extremely good. It all leads us to talk about the next match. Defeating Doki to become the new IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion. This was, of course, due to Yo winning the Best of Super Juniors 33 this year. In a match which had, the House of Torture formula rearing its ugly head once again, which I guess was kind of deflating, because it is what it is, right? Look, the actual wrestling when it happened, I thought was pretty good. I thought it was pretty good. In fact, I was kind of surprised how seriously Yo seemed to take the match, as if he understood some of the criticisms that are lobbed his way here in this circumstance, where he's usually like, a dopey, unserious, semi-comedy guy where people keep constantly saying, go to DDT, you'll flourish in DDT, leave the rest of us to our pro wrestling, go to DDT and do the goofy stuff there. It's almost, he took that really to heart and was like, no, I can have a high level main event, or semi-main event, I should say, for the junior title. He said that to himself, but if anything, it's served to keep him from falling into his more baser instincts and going along with the nonsense, and sort of focus on wrestling. Was this the best call? Sure, but I didn't think the match was great, all that great shakes as well. But I don't think it's really all on Yo. I don't think Yo is all that much of an interesting pro wrestler, and well, not at this stage. I am also part of the crowd of people who don't take him seriously and don't understand why we're suddenly deciding to make him the head of the division. Everyone was clamoring about how over he was in Oda City, right? It wasn't Oda City. Anyway, I think it was in Oda City, but for the finals of the Best of Super Juniors tournament this year, and how over he was. And what did I say when I went over the tournament on the podcast this past week? I told everyone, look, the minute that he stops doing all of his callbacks to all of his chaos friends, doing rainmakers and bum-IAs and so on and so forth, and getting the crowd into it, people feeding into people's nostalgia, into people reminding people that, all the stars are no longer here. right? The minute he stops doing that, people are going to start getting a little more indifferent to him. And I think it's already started. I don't think he got all that great reactions. Not that the people were sitting on their hands, but it was nothing close to what happened in Ota City. But in Ota City, he was doing he was doing stuff to play to the crowd. He did one spot, which was a clear callback to someone else who is no longer in New Japan, Evil, when he threw Sho into the timekeeper's table, and that's an Evil spot right there. So all that was missing was him to pick up the microphone and say something and go ha ha ha. That's all that was missing. But already, look, we're going to get really, really tired of Yo very, very quickly. I'm still convinced about this, which is fine. Look, again, if New Japan is in a beat, is in a mood, is in a vibe of just giving people titles and cycling stuff and keeping things interesting and unpredictable, I'm all for it. You don't think that Yo winning the Best Super Juniors in 2026 was an unpredictable move? It kind of was. It kind of was. And then having him beat Doki, well, beating Doki is less unpredictable. I think at this point, everyone sort of did the Yano pose and was like, yeah, that's probably what's going to happen, right? And that's exactly what happened. I thought Doki had a pretty good ground game to begin the match too. I thought it was pretty good, and the wrestling they had was fun. The transition into the Doki Choki from the monkey flip I thought that was legitimately great. The daybreak and Yo's finishing run was pretty cool too. That was good. But you had Sho showing up literally when the bell rang. He's made his way down to begin the interference. We had the ref bumps. We had Master Wato show up. We had Tanahashi getting involved. Yes, President Hiroshi Tanahashi with his bum knees, he got thrown over the barricade. It was a lot of noise for a match that ended up being 3.25 stars, right? There was enough good work here for it to stand out, and it all kind of came across from Doki. That was pretty much him, right? But the rest, it's like we might. I don't care. And the first match that they set up then once this is all done, because after the match, Sho attacks Yo once the match is over, and then after there's a whole cavalcade of juniors who get involved, right? There's Sho, like we said, Master Wato had showed up in the earlier in the match, and he got beamed over the head accidentally by Yo, despite the fact that they're friends, right? And he gets cracked over the head early on in the match. And Kosei Fujita, who was on commentary during the match, well, he after gets involved in the post-match shenanigans. So does Francesco Akira. And then Yo just says, hey, so listen, this is what we're going to do. Since we've got all these people coming after me, we're going to have a 4-way match to determine the number 1 contender. And I go, hack, gag, yuck. I do not want, especially one that involves the House of Torture, because 4-way matches, there are no disqualification. Perfectly legal, Cole. So it's all going to be a bunch of fucking nonsense. Just name a guy. I don't know why we're doing this. Just name a guy and book other guys on your undercard to move up the ranks. I don't know why we're doing this. And I don't know why Yo has the power to book himself a match for his title, for the number 1 contendership for his title, I should say. I don't know why he's doing this. I hate it. I think it stinks. I don't know why we have to run through all of this. Look, if we just want to put the belt back on Kosei Fujita, which we should, just book a match between Yo and Kosei Fujita. Jesus fucking Christ. Anyway, fine little match, good little match. Too much nonsense, but there was enough backbone and enough good wrestling in here for me to go, I can't sit here and bury it. 3.25 stars. It's fine. It's fine. Speaking of multi-man matches, Shota Umino defeated Andrade Alidolo and Drilla Maloney to become the new IWGP Global Heavyweight Champion. This was a solid enough match, but was held back by the design, I think. You know, it's always, I feel like three-way matches always depend too much on, always end up being just like one-on-one things where like one guy gets taken out and then it's these two guys who have their sequence, and then one of those two guys gets knocked out by, you know, and then the guy who was on the floor comes back in, and then these two guys, you know, like it's like each gets their turn to do stuff, to get their shit in. And I feel like this is the pattern that we were following, and it just slowed a lot of things down. It just, I feel things were, I think the pacing here was really off. And I think it mostly has to do with these three-way things, right? A little more urgency, a little more expediency, I think would have gone a long way to just make this feel, just jolt some life into it. This was a very listless three-way match. I think the individual performances were very strong, and the crowd was very visibly into Drilla Maloney. That's the most remarkable part, I think, of the match here. And you know, when we're talking about pivoting and trying new things and whatnot, maybe New Japan sort of has to decide to pull the pin on a guy like Drilla Maloney and just go, well, the crowds really seem to like you. They really do seem behind you. Why don't we do something, right? Like when he covered, like he lands, right? He lands the Drilla Killer on Andrade, right? And the Drilla Killer is probably the most protected finisher in New Japan. So he hits it. The crowd knows it. They go 1, 2, and then Umino just dives in out of nowhere to break it up. And Umino gets tremendous boos from the crowd. This Osaka-Jo Hall crowd wanted Drilla Maloney to win this global heavyweight championship. They were fully supportive of him in this circumstance. They wanted him to come out on top. I'm the company. I'm like, hey, maybe we should rethink our strategy with this guy. Maybe there's something there. You know, it's one thing to use your top guys and have them cycle in and out of world title shots and championships and runs and whatnot. But you can also build a really interesting undercard, and you could do a lot worse. You know, your audience could be asking for a lot worse than Drilla Maloney as their guy. They could, look, Dan Maloney rocks. He's an extremely good pro wrestler. I'm very excited for his G1 this year because, you know, last year was all right, you know, but maybe this year he might get a little extra stuff. I don't think he's going all the way. I don't think he's winning anything, but, you know, at least there's something going on there. You know, you could do a lot worse. So, I'd give that a try. I'm trying out new people regardless. The only thing that might keep New Japan back from trying is, you know, he's a foreigner, so the risk is always higher that they're going to run away to the United States to work for a $1 billion for a $1 billion company, whether that's the company's valuation or if the financier is a billionaire. Well, that's up for you to decide. And I think it's okay to end the Andrade run at this point. I don't think it's paying off any dividends in New Japan. I don't think it's necessarily more interesting. I don't even think he got a reaction at all in this match, right? It's like, I think New Japan fans see him as an AEW guy, and they're very, very defensive. I think there might be a part of their appreciation for Drilla Maloney is that he is the war dog who stayed. Gabe, Finley, Clark, they all fucked off. They all left for New Japan. And Drilla Maloney said, no, I'm going to stay. And his contract was up just like everyone else's. And he's like, I'm not following. I'm going to do this here. And I think it's a smart move that he did. I think he's shining a lot more. I think he would have been, think about where Dan Maloney would be right now in AEW, how he would be lost in the shuffle, right? The dogs are practically, they're doing everything they can to get some airtime, and we'll see how long it lasts after we're done with the Bucks here. But imagine how lost in the shuffle he'd be. He'd be the fourth guy in the team. Like, he'd clearly be behind Clark Connors, who's getting himself over more than he ever has at any given point in his career, professional career, period. So Maloney staying behind was a smart choice for him. But regardless of that, I think I think there's a part of the Japanese audience that sees it, understands it, and they appreciate it. They're like, hey, this guy stayed behind. He kind of rocks. He decided that New Japan was the best pro wrestling on earth. He decided to stay here as opposed to, fucking off to the U.S. for the big cash, right? For the big paycheck. Not that Drilla Maloney is invulnerable from one day leaving the company to go work for AEW or WWE, but at this given moment in time, he made the choice to stay. And I'm sure that's a factor. I'm convinced that's something that the audience sees and is reacting to positively in this manner. So look, Shota Umino was good. I think there's a lot of stuff about Shota's game that has improved tremendously. I thought it was good. Sure, make him global champion. It's fine. It's all right. I mean, Shota is still not the guy that I would push. Yeah, if we're still talking about the young guys who are now well, still at least a few of them are still young, but the guys who were meant to be the cornerstones of the company moving forward, Shota Umino would still not necessarily be my choice as a consistently pushed commodity. Ryohei Oiwa would probably be my guy, or a guy like Yuya Uemura, who I think both have ultimately bigger upsides. But like Gabe Kidd told us, his dad did a lot of politicking for him to get to this spot here. Oh wait, what do you mean, Gabe Kidd? What does Gabe Kidd have to do with this? Oh, Gabe Kidd ran in after the match when Shota Umino was left alone and was celebrating, and he beat down on him. Cuts a promo that he's making the case for the Death Riders. He's wearing a Death Riders hoodie saying, that you were never truly one of the Death Riders, and still flying those faction colors, despite him being in a faction called the Dogs. Like, ever since Gabe Kidd joined the Dogs, his affiliation to the Death Riders is no longer apparent, right? Like for a guy like me, who watches both promotions, New Japan and AEW, I sort of look at this and I'm like, right, this doesn't quite make sense. This doesn't quite hold up to the smell test. Something a little strange here. I don't see how the Dogs are still so closely affiliated with I don't see how the Dogs are closely affiliated to the Death Riders, and I don't see how Gabe still is because of all it. Or does this mean that Gabe is out of the Dogs? Which would be weird, but it is whatever. Look, Gabe Kidd showed up and he beat regardless. Gabe Kidd showed up, beat down Shota Umino. And he's also cutting his promo on Drilla Maloney, who hasn't, well, Drilla after the match, he and Shota shook hands and they did the, you and me partner. He's like, yeah, I'll give you a title shot and whatnot. And he's walking away when Gabe Kidd attacks. He's already like halfway up the ramp. But Drilla, not only does he not jump in to defend Shota Umino, but he also doesn't jump in to go along with the beating. In fact, he seems a little torn on the ramp because Gabe Kidd is a friend. They used to run together and so on and so forth. So he's torn. He doesn't quite know what to do here. Shota's been cool to him and he's going to offer him a title and he respects him and whatnot. And besides, Drilla's a babyface now, right? He's in the Unbound company. It's a unit of babyfaces. Gabe Kidd clearly being the top tier heel here. So, you know, that'll be some conflict that is going to require some form of resolution, just not today, but that will be something to look out for as Gabe continues to wreak havoc on New Japan Pro Wrestling. His relationship with Drilla Maloney and how that could be very compelling, right? Like if they wanted to try again to get a foreigner who loves New Japan, right? If they wanted to run that bit again, like they did with Gabe, well, they could do it with Drilla, and Drilla then runs out the traitor, the guy who turned his back on New Japan and went to join AEW and got in the ring and said, fuck Shin Nihon Pro Res, right? That's something that we could probably do down the line. And again, it's not as if Drilla Maloney is a schlub. You could do a lot worse than doing this type of angle than with Drilla Maloney as your centerpiece. He's tremendous, and I think if you'd give him an opportunity like this, it would, at the very least, it'd be super interesting to get a couple of good matches out of it. Best case scenario, he gets himself over, and you've got yourself your new Gaijin star. And it wouldn't be that hard too. Your crowd already buys that he's a guy. They've already bought into him. They like him. So why not just flip the switch? Well, because it's New Japan and so on and so forth. Anyway, what did I give this match? 3 3/4 stars. I thought it was very, very good, despite my complaints that it felt a little slow. But that's like the three-way curse, right? In a lot of circumstances where it's just like the pacing is a little bit off. But the work was great. Final stretch was very, very good. I don't have an issue with the match overall. Outside of that, it's solidly put together. They clearly wanted to take the title, and we can't even say, oh, let's make it a three-way because Andrade because they don't want Andrade to get pinned to lose the title. But he lost flat on his back, looking up at the lights to Shota Umino. I'm like, okay, well, what's the point of the three-way then? What was the point? Anyway, moving on. The United Empire duo of Great-O-Khan and Henare defeated the Knockout Brothers to become new IWGP Tag Team Champions. Nice little rock'em sock'em match here that I enjoyed tremendously. I was practically carried by Henare here and Yuto Ice, who did his usual stuff. I thought Oscar was quite good. It's Great-O-Khan here in this match that had me completely puzzled. Like he's just really going through the motions, isn't he? Have you noticed? Great-O-Khan to me feels like he's just going through the motions. I don't even know if he wants to be there anymore. I don't understand. There was a time where this guy was just chomping down on everything that was given to him, and now it's just like, it's like he's coasting through stuff. I don't know. Am I the only person who's seen this? And look, maybe it's because he himself feels like he's lost his spot in the overall hierarchy in the company. But it's like, brother, you're not helping yourself out by, being very lukewarm. Or maybe he's always been like this and I just haven't noticed. I don't think so. I don't think that's the thing. It looks like he's just done with this. I don't know. He's checked out. He doesn't look there. The difference between Henare being tagged in and him is night and day. And of course you can say, well, Henare is a madman as well, Warren. How are we supposed to meet that energy? Fair. But Henare is but there's like a basic, I don't know how to put it, like a spark that is there with Henare and I can't see with the Great-O-Khan. And I thought he kind of held this match back, quite frankly, because I even thought Oscar did a great job, and I'm not the highest guy on Oscar. I don't think he's. Look, outside of this tag team, I don't know what this guy is, what this guy's future is going to be like. Sure, he's still very young in his pro career. Post young Lions career, right? It's still fairly new, so he has time to grow into his spot. But what does the future hold for him outside of this tag team? I couldn't tell you. But, at least in these types of situations, he's like, oh, this is, I look at him and say, okay, this is pretty good. I thought he worked really, really well here. Big highlights is Yuto Ice and Henare beating the piss out of each other. Commentary said that Yuto Ice made this match all about him and Henare, and I'm completely fine with that. Was that supposed to be like a dig? I don't have an issue with it. I'd make it all about Yuto Ice and Henare too. And you could tell in this match that a guy like Henare has been around the block a couple of times, and he gets it, right? Which I don't think Yuto Ice quite has it on the level that Henare has it. I think like Henare is a better overall brawler. He's better at conveying strength and intensity than Yuto Ice is, who just sometimes comes across as a little sloppy. I understand that's part of the gimmick, but I think there's a way to translate that into your work where it still retains some kind of snap, some kind of fierceness to it. But the best parts are when they're beating the piss out of each other to the point that Henare starts bleeding from the head because of course, right? And there was that circumstance, that instance where Yuto Ice does the flash knee on Henare after they've been beating the tar out of each other, right? And Yuto Ice covers Henare, and Henare kicks out like very slowly at two, but not like a snap, because they've been pummeling the shit out of each other. I'm like, all right, you see this is what I mean when I say Henare gets it. He's just like, it doesn't have to be like this huge dramatic release. It's just like, we've been destroying each other. I'm exhausted, but I'm not ready to give up yet, type of thing. And that was tremendous. Anyway, the United Empire guys win with the Imperial Bomb on Yuto Ice. So they get new titles. They get not that they don't get new titles, it's the same titles, but we have new champions with these titles. 3 3/4 stars. I thought it was a rollicking good time. Aaron Wolf regains the never open weight title by defeating Ren Narita. Look, the match itself, the wrestling itself is fine. Okay, it was fine, and it just continues to. I still cannot buy into the theory that Aaron Wolf's wrestling is probably shoddy and not good, and that's why they've been putting him in matches with the House of Torture, so as to smoke and mirror his way because he's not ready for TV. I don't understand. I don't buy his selling. First and foremost, which is always one of the things that is the hardest to get into someone who is new at pro wrestling, and especially someone who was in actual combat sports, right? Because I don't know if you know this, but in combat sports, if someone hurts your elbow, you don't walk around going, and rubbing it and then doing moves and then clasping it again and going, You try to hide where you're hurt so that your opponent doesn't go after it. That's kind of how it works in real life. But for wrestling, we need to sell injuries. We need to sell moves so that the story can come across clearer and that people understand exactly what's going on. So like I said, someone who's coming out of combat sports, that's breaking. That we're going into breaking someone's conditioning who was taught to never show weakness, never show your hurt, into show your hurt or fake hurt, right? Show your fake hurt. And I think his selling is spot on and good. His moveset is solid and it hits with authority. The finishing stretch of this match delivered. The thing here that we only have to ask ourselves is whether or not Aaron Wolf is ready to do like a legitimate one-on-one match from start to finish without House of Torture nonsense happening in the middle? Can he fill the spaces between hitting a judo throw and a German suplex or a senton? Can he fill those spots out with the fundamentals of wrestling? You know, can he add in some transitional moves? How does he use the headlock? Does he have a ground game? Like, these are all things that we can't quite see from Wolf. Because most of the time in these House of Torture matches, it's just the clown car and the interference and the nonsense. So we don't quite get the full picture. But the picture we have right now is really solid, and I don't know what we're doing continuously trying to protect this guy. I am hoping with all of my heart that 6 months into the year, we can put Aaron Wolf versus House of Torture to bed for good. I hope that we never revisit this. I'm not even like, oh, we could revisit this in about a year, in 2 years, Warren, you know, just to rekid it. No, never. If I'm New Japan, I'm in the booking committee. I'm in the creative committee. I am putting out an edict if I'm in charge, an actual edict. And I'm on this edict. I say, Aaron Wolf can no longer share the ring with Ren Narita, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, Sho, Yujiro Takahashi, Doki, the whole 9 yards. I don't care if I forgot anyone there. That means they're ultra forgettable. Dick Togo. I don't care. I don't want them hanging around anymore. I don't want him hanging around them anymore. It's finished. I thought he looked good in this match. I think everything he does looks well. It's well executed. It looks good. I don't have any issues with Aaron Wolf's offense. I just want to see him wrestle a full one-on-one singles match without fucking nonsense in the meantime, without Ren Narita doing garbage and then Yujiro showing up and ref bumps and all this fucking shit. But because of the work that I really did enjoy, in this match, I'm going to give this match a 3.25 star rating, despite the fact that there was a lot of fucking nonsense. Despite it all, despite the low blows, despite Takeshita and Toru Yano coming in to chase off the House of Torture. See, here's the other thing. Like, this is what happens in a lot of these circumstances with House of Torture, is that they'll come to the ring, then sometimes the baby faces will show up and they'll drag them, headlocks. They'll have one guy headlocked into in the left arm, and then the other guy in the right arm, and they'll be like, they'll walk away with them, and I'm like, why did we even do this in the first place? Why even bring the bad guys out in the first place if we're just gonna clean house with them? Like 4 minutes into the match, who cares, right? It all just doesn't matter. But we got it out of the way. They were able to wrestle. There was still some nonsense because it's Ren Narita, but look, Aaron Wolf finishes the match, does a Uranagi and the angle slam, and there you go. Never open weight champion again, and never touch the House of Torture ever again. And look, we're going to probably see what kind of matches Aaron Wolf is going to be able to put over, because he's likely going to be in the G1. There is a very good chance he's going to be in the G1. The G1 field was announced along with the blocks, per usual, with Dominion serving as the launch pad, right? So they announced the first 14 confirmed entrants to the G1 Climax 36, which is starting in just a little over a month, July 11th over there in Hoffman Estates. Don't call it Chicago. So let's run down the blocks with the people that are confirmed so far. A block is going to be composed of Konosuke Takeshita, Hiroki Goto, Bolten Oleg, Yota Tsuji, Shingo Takagi, Jake Lee, Sanada, and either Great Khan or Henare. There was an extra little stip that was announced as the fields were being revealed, that the winner of the match later on in the evening, the match between the Knockout Brothers and Great Khan and Henare would get immediately put into the tournament in either Block A or Block B. So we know Great Khan and Henare are in the tournament. We just don't know, as I'm recording this, which block exactly they've been assigned to. B block is made up of Shota Umino, Yuya Yamera, Ren Narita, Drilla Maloney, Zack Sabre Jr., Callum Newman, Gabe Kidd, and Great Khan or Henare. Now, if you are very astute and you've been following everything I said, you're probably going, Warren, there's only 8 people per block. Usually there's 10 typically in these 2-block G1s. What's going on? Well, we still have play-ins. We have qualifiers that are left to that are going to be happening. So there's still 2 open slots per block. So there's still 4 guys that will earn that will have to work to earn a spot in the tournament. If you ask me, who I think is going to be added into it, I think it is a pretty solid shoe-in that Yuto Ice, Ryohei Oiwa, and Aaron Wolf are all going to make their way into the tournament. There's a lot of people who seem to think that Oscar is also a shoe-in, that it's just a question of him getting in, that it's not a problem. I'm not so sure. I don't know. There's something in my gut that says Oscar is not that much of a, I don't think he's that much of a shoe-in. I feel like his partner is, because Yuto Ice is extremely popular in Japan, but amongst New Japan fans, period. And Oscar, I don't know. I think there might be a 4th guy, maybe a little wild cardy, something that someone coming out of left field, maybe an upset win or something. I don't know who, but I don't think that Oscar is an absolute lock, like I think Yuto Ice, Aaron Wolf, and Ryohei Oiwa are. I mean, those 3 guys are absolutely they're absolute locks for the tournament, regardless. Oh, I'll have time to talk about this a lot more in detail as the weeks move on. I'm still planning on doing daily G1 reviews here on the Mr. Warren Hayes show. So if you're into that, well, that will be upcoming. We'll be back to doing that this year since we didn't do it last year. But I will absolutely be doing it. I'll be absolutely be following it on the day per day. So we'll be thinking about the G1, talking about the G1 moving forward and its placements. But as it stands right now, I think B block has a slight edge when it comes to the overall capacity of having better matches, quality matches, more interesting matches than A block, which unfortunately has Jake Lee, which has Sonata, who can be, very touch and go and probably a little on the sleepy side. Whereas on B block, on the B block side, only Ren Narita is a problem. He's a substantial problem, but at least the Ren Narita will probably be the night off guy when those matches happen. But look, we'll see what the final composition looks like. I don't think there's necessarily a true weaker block than one to the other when you compare them, as opposed to the Best of Super Juniors this year, where A block was clearly the better block and B block was going to be a mess, and it did end up being exactly that. I don't think like it's that clear cut, but I think the overall, I think B block edges out A block a little bit on that front. But I don't want to spend too much time talking about the G1. It's just basically relaying the information. Hey, by the way, Hiroki Goto is going to be doing this for his 17th time. 17 entries into the G1. That is non-negligible, right? And Zack Sabre Jr., 10th consecutive G1. That's crazy. That is crazy to me. Let's blow through the rest of these matches. We've been going on quite long, and there's a little less maybe to talk about in these next ones here. El Desperado defeated Mystico. They are tag team champions. They are junior tag team champions. They are friends. They are partners. and the team explodes. No, it doesn't. It's just friendly competition. I enjoyed this. I thought it was a very, very good match. 3 3/4 stars. I guess I'm kind of expecting them to do like these incredible feats, and just be absolutely awesome. But then I remember, hey, you know what? This is a New Japan show, and the guys on the undercard are not there to steal the show. They're just there to, set the stage. And I mean, it didn't disappoint. I thought it was very, very, very good. I guess I was hoping for something bigger. But had it been higher up on the card with a little more stakes, I think we could have had something really special. But this was really fun. The match had real style, chemistry, the Escalera arm drag, the Spanish fly, turning it to the floor. You've got, basically Mystico doing all sorts of lucha flair in here. And he eventually taps out to the numero dos, tapping fairly quickly too, with the commentary flagging the fact that, that El Desperado used Mystico's legitimate injury against him. So, it's like, it was good. It was good. And both guys shook hands after. So, it was a nice, fun match for the undercard here. Up until that point, it had been my match of the night. We had Taichi and Yuya Uemura defeating Ryohei Oiwa and Zack Sabre Jr. It was a pretty good match that fell a little short of its ceiling, I think. The big Tekkers face-off pop, was, I guess, a bit of an emotional centerpiece, and people were really expecting something out of it. But again, mid-card, we're not trying to steal the show. But I feel like in another circumstance, these guys would have just they just would have sweat pools of sweat everywhere. And they would have given so much, and the match could have truly been excellent. This was fine. It was good. I don't know. I don't know if it's my disappointment that's pushing me to giving them 3 1/4 stars, but I think that it was on that level. Jake Lee defeated El Fantasmo in a no disqualification match. Slow, formulaic plunder match that hit every expected beat that you can think of without elevating anything. The structure was predictable. American garbage wrestling, ladder, kendo sticks, chairs, and making chair structures out of them. And of course, the cherry on top of Jake fucking Lee, one of the wrestlers that I hate the most on planet Earth. 2.5 stars. And the show opened up with Konosuke Takeshita successfully retaining the world. I said every title changed hands, but I lied. I lied. I forgot about the opener. I mean, it's overall forgettable. Don't get me wrong. It's not as. But that's right. That is the one title that did not change hands. Konosuke Takeshita retained against Sanada. Look, I don't know why we felt like we had to recap all of the gimmicks in the career of Sanada, all gimmicks that really fucking look alike with the skulls and whatnot. It's just like I guess how bedazzled the cold skulls were. Is that the thing? Is that we're defining Sanada's eras now? Like the real change was from him leaving New Japan to join just 4 guys, which would then become just 5 guys, and then winning the title because then he'd just wear a fighter's robe essentially. I'm like, what the fuck? Why Sanada? Why are we doing this with Sanada? And then when he finally appears after an entrance that felt like it lasted 10 minutes, I was like, oh my God, can we just move on? He's dressed up like Seth Rollins. I'm like, oh my God, okay. I mean, all right, fine. What, it's, I sort of shrugged and I was like, all right, who cares? Like, it's Sanada after all. That being said, I thought Sanada put in some good work here. I thought it, as an opener, this did the job and then some. Match structure was sound. Sanada's controlling early on with Cutter and Shining Wizards, and Takeshita's reversing out of Dragon Sleepers into Bastard Drivers and a Blue Thunder Bomb, and and the near fall off of the O'Connor roll was pretty fun. Sanada worked here. I can't say that he didn't work. But you never. But I mean, this is as high as it goes for Sanada. I think we've tried Sanada as a top guy, and he didn't deliver, and he wasn't interesting, and he's a charisma. He doesn't have as much charisma as people like to believe he does. Nice match here with Takeshita, who still is one of the best wrestlers on planet Earth. 3.5 stars. I mean, that's it. Now I feel really dumb that I said at the start of the review that all titles changed hands, but I'm not going to go back and retcon this. I'm not going to go back and re-record. I'm just going to have to deal with the humiliation moving forward. But like, honestly, I forgot about this match. I just forgot about it. And I think that's it. It's like, it's just a nothing match. Just goes to show, little nothing match that happens. Nice 3.5 star match, but a dime a dozen, and we'll never think of this again. It's not as if Konosuke Takeshita is lighting the world on fire, in New Japan as a world TV champion either. Anyway, all titles except one. I should have said all IWGP titles changed. That's what I should have said. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's too late now. And that's it. That's the show. I just reviewed Dominion in Osaka-Jo Hall 2026. I mean, look, you saw by the review, good matches, pretty much up and like a good show, but an unremarkable show, and most importantly, a forgettable show. We're setting the stage for the G1 season coming up, and the G1 is going to be everything that we're going to be talking about. We're going to have the play-in matches and so on and so forth. There you go. That's where we're at right now when it comes to New Japan, and at the very least, this was way better than the Dontaku shows, which is something. But we're a far cry from the excellence that once defined New Japan Pro Wrestling from top to bottom. But it was a good show. Should I recommend anything? You can go watch the main event. The main event is absolutely watchable and fun. I think, it's not a must watch, but if you have time, I'm not going to recommend anything else. But if you want to sit down and watch the show, it's fine too. You see what kind of middle ground I'm in right now? What kind of warp zone, some kind of weird, some weird gray area that I'm in, where I was like, it's not a terrible show. I can't tell you, avoid this show. You can go watch it, but it's unremarkable, and you're going to, we'll never think of this show again. Type of thing. But it's a good wrestling show. I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, look, I enjoyed it enough, but not to outright recommend. If you're wondering, oh, maybe I should watch it because Warren thought, I'm not going to recommend it. You'll be completely fine moving forward, having not watched this show. Just get ready for G1 season instead. How about that? Those are my thoughts. Let's talk about the G1 Climax 36. The full field was revealed this past weekend at Dominion, and we got it. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it right now, jerks. That was harsh. You're not jerks. This is the composition here. For those of you with the benefit of video, you've got the full field right here. For those of you who do not, I'm going to rattle them off. The A block this year for the Climax 36 will be composed of Konosuke Takeshita, IWGP Heavyweight Champion Yota Tsuji, Sanada, Shingo Takagi, Jake Lee, Bolton Oleg, Great Okan, and Hiroki Goto. These are all the people who have been announced, because there are play-ins, buy-ins, qualifiers, whatever you want to call them. I like to call them play-ins because you get play-offs, but then you should have play-ins, right? So there's 2 spots open for play-ins. We'll get to those in a second. And confirmed for the B block is Callum Newman, Zack Sabre Jr., Shota Umino, the IWGP Global Heavyweight Champion, Yuya Uemura, Ren Narita, Drilla Maloney, Gabe Kidd, coming back from injury, and Henare. So all of these things are very cool. Those are the 2 compositions right now. And like I said, there's going to be some play-ins. There's going to be play-ins, qualifiers, and they were announced today. the 4 people, because there's 2 spots per block still open. So the 4 matches were announced, and I speculated that out of the 4 matches, the 3 that were absolute locks to being in the tournament were Yuto Ice, Aaron Wolf, and Ryohei Oiwa. A lot of people were like, oh, but Oscar, he's going to be in the 2. Oscar. And I was like, I don't quite feel the Oscar. But now that I've seen the match, it's like, he's probably going in as well. Here are the 4 play-in matches that we get. Yuto Ice versus Taichi. That should be a lot of fun. I think Taichi is going to get something good out of this big jelly belly boy here. Big belly boy. Yoshihashi will be taking on Aaron Wolf. Oscar will be taking on Yujiro Takahashi. And Ryohei Oiwa facing El Fantasmo. For some reason, a lot of folks think Fantasmo has a chance here. Like, well, no. No, and I like El Fantasmo enough, but I think his days of being like a pushed commodity, I think they're done. And there's way more upside in giving this time to Ryohei Oiwa than ELP. And Scar, well, you know, I think the winners are all pretty clear, right? I think overall, but hear me out. Scar, what if Gedo just decided, hey, you know what? We're gonna put Yujiro into this G1, and he's gonna be the night off for B Block. Because right now it's pretty much Ren Narita. But what if it's like, no, Ren, we want you to work this year, and we're gonna put Yujiro in here, and that'll be the night off for every guy. I'm just saying. All I'm saying is, I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case. So the winner of Aaron Wolf versus Yoshihashi and the winner of Oscar versus Yujiro Takahashi will join the B block, while Yuto Ice or Taichi and Ryohei Oiwa and El Fantasmo will be joining the A block. So look, I mean, this is as good a field as you could create with the elements that are at your disposal. I don't think there's any big surprises here. I don't think there's anything that I don't think there's anyone in this. I don't think there's anyone in this field where you're like, oh, what a shock, you know? It's like, you know, why are they doing this guy over that guy? I don't think there's anyone here necessarily where that is kind of out of the ordinary. I think it's the best with what you got. I mean, you could just not use Jake Lee at all ever, but I guess he's the night off for A block. He's going to be the night off. I hope so. I mean, I say this that, oh, well, obviously he's going to be but fucking hell. So when I first saw the blocks, when they were announced, obviously we didn't know who the play-in matches were going to be. We didn't know what the play-in matches were going to be. So, you know, we just had the confirmed blocks of the confirmed blocks of 8. I was looking at this and I was like, hey, you know what? I think A block has a bit of an edge over block B. There's a lot of good stuff in block B. You know, I'm kind of excited at the idea of, you know, in block B of, you know, Drilla Maloney getting himself over with the New Japan crowd. That could be a lot of fun. You know, Hanare being in it this year, like that's tremendous as well. And then you've got, you got Yuya, you've got Zack Sabre Jr., Gabe Kidd. Holy fucking shit, did he look like $1 million when he removed his hoodie? Complete transformation. This fucking guy looks tremendous. I'm like, okay, motivated Gabe Kidd, all healthy, leaned out, looks like a fucking machine. Like, okay, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff here. And I was like, the A block has just a lot of ass kickers, and I'm like, this is probably my favorite, but yeah, just edging out a little bit. But ever since they announced that both Yuto Ice and Ryohei Oiwa were going to be in A block, and Asuka is going to be in B block, then I'm like, okay, so the block to watch is going to be the A block. I think that's the one that has, I think that's the one that's going to be the most exciting from them both. That's the one that I'm most looking forward to. That's the one that has the most, the more compelling matches, the more kick-ass stuff to come. So, A block has my vote. You're throwing in Asuka on B block. That sort of brings everything down. I don't think Asuka is a great worker. We've mostly only seen him in the tag team situation ever since he returned from excursion. So, I mean, I'm saying Asuka, but it could be Yujiro. And if it is Yujiro, well, that absolutely sinks B block, right? Then that absolutely just, that's a little. And Aaron Wolf, who effectively is an unknown commodity at this point, right? I don't buy into the idea that Aaron Wolf is being, smoke and mirrored with the House of Torture because the company is afraid that he's not ready, right? That and that his progress isn't going as well. Look, with the match that he had on Dominion, again, not a blowaway match, but his stuff is perfect. His stuff is just, it works. It connects. It looks good. His selling is very, very good, which is, again, like I talked about in the review, selling for a combat fighter who's coming into pro wrestling is one of the most difficult things to switch into, because when you're in an actual combat fight, when you're not supposed to show you're hurt, you're not supposed to show you're exhausted. You're supposed to, like, when's the last time you watched an MMA fight? Period. Ayo. No, but when's the last time you watched an MMA fight where a guy hurts his elbow, and then for the rest of the match he's going, ooh, and then he throws a punch and he goes, ooh, ooh. No one does that. It's a pro wrestling thing, and combat fighters are trained to not to push through the pain and not show where you might be hurt, so that your opponent doesn't use it to their advantage. Whereas in pro wrestling, it's part of the storytelling technique to sell, so that people clearly understand what's going on. So, like, that's exactly the thing, right? For Aaron Wolf, his selling is great. So the thing here ultimately is, can he keep it together for the entirety of a match? What will he do between big power moves, big spots? Will he be able to fill out the negative spaces with some fundamentals, with transition moves, and so on and so forth? Like, that's what I'm interested in seeing. But I don't think this guy is. I don't think Aaron Wolf in any way, shape, or form is a problematic commodity. I don't think he's in a situation right now, as far as his training goes, where it's like, ooh, we're embarrassed to put him into a singles match. I mean, we're going to see it in this tournament, because they won't be able to smoke and mirrors everything with House of Torture matches all the time. Like, he's actually going to have to wrestle an actual match with Zack Sabre Jr. Tell me that doesn't, like, get you excited, where you're like, fuck yeah, like, this, it's go time, motherfucker. You think Gabe Kidd's gonna go easy on him? You think Hanare's gonna go easy on him? See, this is exciting, because we're gonna have to see what this guy's up to. And the other side is pretty good. Oh God, arm bars everywhere. It's gonna rule. And Zack is a perfect opponent for him. That's the thing. I know you can't have him come in and wrestle out the gate Zack Sabre Jr., but it's going to be so much fun. Like, it's going to be an Aaron Wolf showcase. Now, of course, if he stinks, it's going to be the most tedious tournament ever, right? But you probably won't. Now, of course, question that we're all asking ourselves is Callum Newman going to make it? Because Callum Newman was injured during his title defense on Sunday at Dominion. Apparently his shoulder popped out. and he was having an MRI today. So we're going to see what happens moving forward. Hopefully it's nothing too serious, and that he can do the tournament, because otherwise we've got ourselves a free spot that just opened up. Yeah. Put in Bad Dude Tito. Put in Hartley Jackson. just for fun. You know, if Tiger Mask was a heavyweight, I'm like, hey, there's your retirement, brother. you're gonna work 10 nights nonstop. Anyway, so you know, hopefully Callum Newman will be okay. You know, I'm not particularly excited at the idea of Sonata in the tournament. I thought he wrestled fine at the at Dominion. I thought he was okay, but you know, I feel like, you know, we're going to get sleepy Sonata at some point, very early on. It's going to be like, all right, okay, and then we have to deal with Jake Lee. God, I hate that wrestler so much. Just enough. Tiger Mask versus Jake Lee. Tiger Mask just slapping the shit out of this guy constantly. Just like shoot punches. And we're going to have another round with Konosuke Takeshita here. I don't think he's going to do as well as he did last year. Last year they tried everything to get him over. It didn't quite work out. I mean, look, you're better off having Konosuke Takeshita in the tournament because he's still one of the best professional wrestlers on earth. I'm very excited nonetheless to see him wrestle most of these guys. Most of these guys. Him and Ryohei Oiwa should be a fucking blast. And Oiwa, he is still my guy. And I know, like, a lot of people are starting to move away from him, but he is still my guy. He's still my baby boy. I'm still hanging on to him. I still think he's the future of this fucking company. Big barrel-chested kid. He's got the wavy hair. He's got the charisma. He's got the smile, the crowd connection. I will not forget. I will forget in what occasion. What occasion he finished. It was during the Jake, the New Japan Cup, right? He won his match in the main event, and then after that he stepped out of the ring and started shaking hands and high-fiving and taking pictures with fans and whatnot. And I'm like, look at this guy. And he's got that smile on his face, which is just way too authentic. We're like, he is enjoying every second of this. He's enjoying being out there with the fans. This guy is such a fucking natural baby face. And yet we're going to insist on Shota Umino, who is improving. I think Shota's putting it together. This could be a big breakout G1 for our boy, the roughneck. It could be, but Oiwa is such a shoo-in for me. I'm like, you know, this guy shows up in my promotion. I'm like, this is the guy. I'm building I am taking out a 401k off the back of this guy. This is my future right here. People forget Oiwa worked at N1 Tour during his Noah excursion, and he had one of the best fucking matches, which was the headlock match with Kaito Kiyomiya. The headlock match absolutely slapped. They went to time on that one, if I'm not mistaken. It made my top 10 that year, 2024, right? 2023, 2024. I fucking love the headlock match. And I'm glad that they never really got rid of the headlock gimmick for him. And now they seem to be leaning into it. It's like, because even Tanahashi gave it a name. He called it the big grind, the big lock, or something like that. Okay, I fucking love it. Ryohei Oiwa, he's the dude. Like, he's not winning the G1, but he should. He should. And Great Okan is there too. And I mean, look, chat, I talked about it on the review. I don't know if you listened to it or not, but, you know, is it me, chat, or is Great Okan just like completely checked out? Is it me, or is this a guy who just doesn't seem to have a spark anymore? I'm not saying like he's bad and he's sloppy. I'm just saying that he doesn't have, there's no drive to what he does. Right? So So I'm like, who cares that Great-O-Khan is in this? It kind of makes you wonder if he still wants to be a pro wrestler sometimes. Like, come on, man. Like, come on. You're the fucking Great-O-Khan. Yes, I do remember when we got to the Final Four in the G1. There were a lot of hopes that were riding. I don't know what happened. I have no idea what happened, but the career trajectory of the Great-O-Khan is going to be something that people will have to talk about and try to understand. We need some backstage context to this, because something has to have happened. Something has to have happened. I mean, this guy was going around posting pictures of himself with women of the night while he was in Las Vegas, right? Bull riding huge penises and just having the time of his life, saving girls, at subway stations in Tokyo or whatever, getting police commendations, and then all of a sudden, it's just like, I don't know. He's not into it, and if he's not going to be into it, I'm not going to be into it. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna be screaming at the top of my lungs for more Great-O-Khan. And, Boltin Oleg in here on the A side, always kind of like he's always like the forgotten guy of the younger guys. And yet he shows up and you're like, hey, yeah, I like this guy. It's like, yeah, all right. And I feel like more and more like he's finding a way to do the gear switching and raise to another level. And I like Boltin Oleg. I hope I hope he has a great tournament. And I hope Yuya has a great tournament as well. I like Yuya Uemura a lot. Shota's probably going to get pushed, right? They will have never given up on Shota Umino. Shota Umino, the minute he gets an offer from Tony Khan, he is gone. Like, this is a guy, I'm convinced he is just waiting for the opportunity to go work in the US. So he gets along with a lot of guys who are backstage in AEW a lot more than he gets along with people in the New Japan locker room. The first taste of American money he's going to get from Tony Khan, he is out of there. I'm sure. Maybe not the first. Maybe not the first, but soon thereafter. Real talk, Shingo versus Take Soup is on my calendar for sure. Of course. I mean, pretty much everything with Shingo. Like, Shingo might be a guy who will no longer be pushed in New Japan, He's a guy who will, he's a guy who will transition into the Tomohiro Ishii role. I think that's where he's starting to be slotted in, right? But that's a good spot. Tomohiro Ishii would have great matches with whoever he fought against, right? It'll be the same with Shingo. Shingo and Soup, Shingo and Oleg, Shingo and Goto, Shingo and Ice, Shingo and Oiwa. He might even spark something under Great-O-Khan too. You never know. I mean, he's gonna try with Jake Lee, but Shingo's good, but he's not a miracle worker. Oiwa can't get out of Zack Sabre Jr.'s shadow, just like Fujita. I think this Super Junior went a long way to do that, but I don't disagree with Oiwa being overshadowed by Zack. I don't disagree with that. Sonata versus Jake Lee is what will play in purgatory for all eternity. Can you imagine House of Torture and the fucking goofball from the United Empire who comes out with this stuffed animal? Oh God, I hate this man so much. Like, I don't know the man, but the projection of Jake Lee, the wrestler, God, I hate him. I just cannot stand him. It is absolute 100%. Go away, turn off the TV heat. Shingo's like Ishii. Shingo, there's a conglomeration confirmed. My time is now. Boy will not break out of that shadow until he gets that singles win over Zack, which is inevitably going to happen. Hey, it might have. Look, I don't think we know what the playoff situation is for this, right? Wasn't it 3 finalists last year? And like 2 and 3 2 and 3 had to fight to advance, and the winner got a bye. Like, wasn't that it? There were quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals, right? Right. So maybe in this circumstance, hey, maybe Zach and Oiwa will fight in a quarterfinal match here to end the G1, and maybe Oiwa gets his big win here. And that would be a big, significant win regardless, but maybe a big, significant win with extra stakes, or maybe not. I mean, I'm still convinced that Oi was not being pushed, but you know, yeah, right. Like, Finley and Evil got buys. It was something like that. It was like 3 finalists, and well, here I'll pull up the wiki. There we go, and G1 Climax and 2025, and yeah, that's exactly it. We had 3 finalists per block. And second and third moved on to playoffs. Then you had the semifinals with the winner of each block getting a bye. It was Evil and Zack Sabre Jr. who had the byes. You had Shota Umino, Yota Tsuji, David Finley, and Konosuke Takeshita, who were all in the playoffs. You know, I kind of hope, crossing my fingers here, I kind of hope they don't do that type of scenario for the finals. I hope they just do like they did with Best of Super Juniors. I hope they just do, top two advance. You have a little semifinal, and then you have the finals. That ideally you just have, the winner of both blocks just going straight to the finals. That to me is much more compelling, adds more interest, I find, but heading into the but if they want to do a playoff situation, I hope it's more like, just the top 2 moving forward. Top 3, it's a lot less fun. I feel the blocks aren't as meaningful then. I don't know. It's not, historically, I don't think it's not as fun to follow. It's not as fun to follow when you have all these multiple spots that are open and whatnot. It doesn't feel as tense. Doesn't feel like every point matters. Feels like, oh, I still have room to fuck up, But when you lose 2 in a row, you're like, oh, Jesus Christ. I got to start winning some matches here, right? And I also hope, this is one last hope and we'll move on. I also hope that Gedo does not book one of the 2 blocks, where everyone is like at an even keel of points the entirety of the tournament, just like he did with B block at the Best of Super Juniors. That sucks. It's not exciting. It's not fun. I find it's much more interesting when you have 1, maybe 2 guys who break apart from the rest of the pack early on, and then you see people trying to catch up. As opposed to, oh, everyone's going to be at 6 and 8. And it's like, ugh. I have decided, I am committed, I am going to do daily G1 coverage this year. Didn't do it last year. I've been doing it for the past couple of years. Didn't do it last year because I was traveling. But this year I will not. So I'm committed. I will be doing daily G1 coverage here on the channel. And I'm excited to do it. But I also want to point this out because I said it before. I said it last week in the Dominion preview, and this remains the same. This right here is going to be New Japan telling me, Warren, they'll be telling me either, Warren, we want you to keep watching us, or Warren, we don't want you to keep watching us. It's going to be entirely up to them. I need something good I need a good, fun tournament this year. If we get a tournament which is anywhere close to what happened with the Best of Super Juniors this year, I think I'm going to be shutting the book on New Japan and checking in back on back with Wrestle Kingdom, because there is too much good stuff that I could be watching instead. I would easily swap New Japan for Stardom and watching Stardom more frequently in my viewing habits right now, in a flash, just like that. So I'm going to get it. The G1 is an audition. And if if I get fucking bored watching this and I start slamming my head against the wall like I was at some point during the Best of Super Juniors, because everyone was fucking doing bits. Everyone was doing bits. All I wanted to watch was pro wrestling, but then you had whiskey mists and ringing the bells and stuffed animals being put in cages and choking people out with socks and all this fucking bullshit. When all I wanted to do was watch some pro wrestling, I had bits. So you delivered to me exciting, top tier pro wrestling like Will Ospreay demands, like Yota Tsuji expects. I'll stick around. And no, I'm not dropping it for TNA if I do. It's Forbidden Door season, folks. Now, I have made a proclamation. I have submitted an edict. I sincerely believe that Forbidden Door season is the absolute dirt worst because the wrestling discourse cannot handle it. And this has been the case year after year after year after year, ever since the first one to where we are right now. Every year, there is just dog shit discourse in regards to Forbidden Door. Every single year. I thought this year was probably the worst, was probably the least bad entry in the overall online community discussion about Forbidden Door. Because look, every year since the start, it's been like, well, especially in the first few years, right? It's like nobody knows who these people are. Like at least the first year, okay? I'm trying to say too many things at once, but the first year, there's a lot of things that you can expect, and you're like, oh well, in retrospect, all these people were fucking idiots, right? Because they were saying, oh, this is never going to sell out. Nobody knows who these Japanese dorks are. These are all indie wrestlers, and so on and so forth. That was part of the discourse, but at the very least, you can go, you can poo-poo these morons and move on, right? But then also, the card was falling apart because everyone was getting injured in the lead up to the first Forbidden Door. I'm sure everyone remembers that as well. So, people said, oh, it's going to fail. It was just an absolute fucking mess. And it's every discourse surrounding Forbidden Door after that has always been a mess. It has either been, why aren't we getting better matches? Why is the IWGP title in the middle of the card? Although that's a very justified piece of discussion. Anyway, we'll get to that in a second. You'd have talk about, oh, there's not enough women. Where are the Stardom women? Where are the Stardom women? And especially when you were someone like me and you're like, I know why there's no Stardom women. I wish I could tell you. I wish I could tell you the reason why there was no Stardom crossovers on these shows. But then finally, Bushiroad got rid of the reason why there was no Stardom crossover. So now everything's fine. But it's just dog shit discourse year after year. And I thought this year it wasn't so bad, right? The main discourse that happened mostly last year that sort of continues this year is, well, it doesn't feel like a Forbidden Door show anymore, right? Because especially after last year where it was mostly AEW guys who were there wrestling, and whatnot. A lot of people a lot of people said, well, it doesn't feel like a Forbidden Door. Where's all the crossover? And people like me would try to explain, well, what is the crossover you want? Because there's no stars right now in New Japan. New Japan is not in a good spot. They all have a bunch of guys, that the company is not pushing. And there's just no stars. So, everyone's... Look, they shoehorned Hiroshi Tanahashi into the cage match last year because, they're like, well, this is the last time he's going to wrestle for us, and we got to make it special and whatnot. And, that was the whole crux of it, right? It's just, expectations not being met, disappointed, and whatnot. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into what's going on this year in regards to Forbidden Door, because we will have a preview, and I want to save all my thoughts properly for when we get to the preview, when we do have the full portrait, right? But then you get stuff like what happened today. When you get Yota Tsuji show up, he starts talking to Tokyo Sports, and old Yota starts sharing some thoughts here, right? Now, Tokyo Sports, in case you don't know, is, it is a sports it is a sports outfit. It covers it covers pro wrestling and whatnot, but it does stick to kayfabe. Like, think of it kind of like a Pro Wrestling Illustrated, where they're never going to completely blow the cover of kayfabe. Not completely. They might let some shoot stuff sneak in sometimes, especially when you're talking to Tetsuya Naito, or but a lot of the times they're going to keep the blanket of kayfabe, because as opposed to here in North America, kayfabe in Japan is, I wouldn't say alive and well, but is the facade is maintained a little more. They make an effort to make sure that the stories come first, and that we don't cross over into reality all that much, right? I think that's something that happens quite a bit, which is why, a lot of the young guys, for instance, right? A lot of the young, handsome boys, men that are in New Japan Pro Wrestling, that are on the come up, if they are they are required to keep their private life off of social media. Don't take pictures with friends and family and girlfriends, because because and it's an old way of thinking, but I know it still exists today, that if a guy, if it's well known that a guy has a girlfriend or a wife, he will be less desirable by the female fans, so will sell less merch, they'll be less interested, so on and so forth. I mean, Stardom does the same, to be completely honest. There are exceptions, of course, but in general, that's it. Anyway, long-winded story to say, look, Tokyo Sports is also a kayfabe outfit, right? And they posted an article that they got from that came straight from the mouth of newly crowned two-time IWGP Heavyweight Champion Yota Tsuji, who won the title off of Callum Newman this weekend at Dominion. Now, there's been a lot of stuff that has been clipped and discussed about this article. Of course, it's in Japanese, so all we really have to go on is a machine translation of the thing, right? So you do this thing, and you do translate to English type of thing, and then whoop, there you go, and then you have the whole thing there. Now, I don't know if you know this, but Japanese is a really complicated language and does not have at all the same type of grammatical structure that English has, and composition of words and whatnot. There's levels to Japanese as well. When you want to be more formal, more casual, it can affect like how you write things, which is normal. I'm saying as if this is like some kind of particularity, but same thing in English, right? You can either write, if you write I am going to, or you write I'm gonna, it means the same thing, but in two different intentions, right? Two different tones, I should say. Got one which is a lot more casual and one that's a lot more formal. So the point though being is that there's a lot of stuff that can be lost in translation. And I read through it. I read through the machine translation about Yota Tsuji's comments. And I went a little deeper, and I got a pal to sort of look it over for me as well, and help me out. Maybe get a translation which is a little closer to what the actual intent in Japanese was. It's not all that far off from the machine translation, quite honestly, but there are nuances and words that are used that are significantly, well, not significantly different, but that do change the intent of what's going on here. So what did Yota Tsuji talk about? Right? What did he chat up with Tokyo Sports? Well, he basically said, he says he as this headline here says, he demands reforms from New Japan and their new system, or their new ownership, essentially, and also hints at boycotting the AEW joint event Forbidden Door, quoting, "I will protect the value of IWGP." Now, this got a lot of people up in arms, and I'll read the article. Not because I can speak Japanese. I'm not trying to show off. I cannot speak Japanese. I cannot read Japanese, but I will read the article nonetheless, based off the enhanced translation that I got from PAL. At New Japan Pro Wrestling's June 14 Osaka-Jo Hall event, challenger Yota Tsuji defeated Callum Newman to become the 89th IWGP Heavyweight Champion. Tsuji declared his renewed commitment to carrying the promotion on his shoulders and expressed strong enthusiasm for reform under the new organizational structure that will see New Japan become a consolidated subsidiary of TV Asahi as of June 30th. So you see, the machine translation here was talking about what it is, system, right? The reforms from the new system. When my pal looked over it and said, well, it's like, yeah, system, okay, but here we're talking about an organization, an organizational structure. From the ring, meaning from his post-match promo on Sunday, he pledged to restore the prestige of the top championship and signaled a reluctance to defend the title at the joint show with AEW Forbidden Door, June 28th, in San Jose, California. This was the rematch following the title loss at the Ryogoku event in April. Tsuji countered a champion fighting through a left shoulder injury who kept throwing Oz cutters, catching him with a Gene Blaster counter. He finished the match with his new move, the Fire Blaster. I didn't know he had given it the big move, but it's a spinning spear, essentially. Taking the 3 count, he then delivered his signature New Era declaration, one he's made countless times before, proclamating, quote, "You'd better believe I'm ready to carry the new era that New Japan Pro Wrestling is entering," unquote. The promotion has been in full transformation mode both inside and outside the ring. Hiroshi Tanahashi retired at the January 4th Tokyo Dome show, and in May, parent company Bushiroad announced the sale of all its shares to TV Asahi and Cyber Agent. On the organizational side, Tsuji was passionate about the need for internal reform. First and foremost, this is a quote here from him, "First and foremost, I think it's essential to stop the talent drain. Everyone loves New Japan, but if someone puts in front of you a deal to earn in 1 month what you'd make in a year here, as a professional, of course you're going to take it. I'm not saying match it dollar for dollar, but I'd like them to at least offer conditions good enough to keep people from leaving." I want to stop here before we continue, because we've been talking about how a lot of this, when we talk about when we're talking to Tokyo Sports, there's a level of kayfabe that's maintained and whatnot. But Yota Tsuji has been towing this line between the kayfabe and his own real feelings. He's been doing that for a while. He's been doing that ever since Kazuchika Okada announced that he was going to be leaving New Japan. That sort of upset him, and it's a grudge that he's carried, or at least maybe not a grudge, but it definitely put a chip on his shoulder, moving forward, and he still carries it to this day. So he has positioned himself as a locker room leader backstage. He takes his role as a guy in the company seriously, and he wants to make it very clear that, look, I love New Japan. There was another guy not that long ago whose whole thing was, hey, I love New Japan, right? But the difference here that Yota Tsuji is trying to come to get across is like, well, I'm not a foreigner. I'm a guy who lives, I'm Japanese. I'm one of you. I love New Japan. I'm going to stick around for as long as I can. Like, he's not giving any indication that he wants to leave. But he is saying, look, and it's something that we knew, that we've talked about multiple times here on the podcast. He says, he's realistic, is what I'm trying to say. He's being realistic, where he understands that if someone's going to offer you this insane amount of money, you're going to take it. No matter what your love for New Japan is, you're going to do the right thing for you as a professional. And that's, I think, a nuance that a lot of people never really quite got with Tsuji, but he's flat out says it in this article. Says, I don't blame anyone for leaving. He says, if anything, I blame the company who, could make it so that, even if they can't match the contract dollar for dollar, well, they could make things a little nicer for us. They could throw in a couple of extras, throw us a bone or two, just sweeten the pot here to give us a reason to at least say, you know what, my heart is here. Japan is my home. I'm going to stay here even though I'm making X less money. I'm making this much more. I've gained this much more, which is something that it seems from what he's saying, Bushiroad was reluctant to do. I mean, they look at the situation with Tetsuya Naito, right? Essentially, Tetsuya Naito, what he needed was time off, but Bushiroad was like, no, we're not going to pay you to take some time off, which makes sense from a business point of view. But this is also Tetsuya Naito, who is also one of your company's biggest stars, and you're like, no, okay, we're not going to entertain this, and thank you, goodbye, type of thing, right? So, of course, this nuance here that Tsuji is bringing is not that he's saying, I hate everyone who goes to the other company. I hate the other company for all the money they keep throwing at our stars here. What he's saying is, I understand why you take the money. I just wish our company did more to keep our guys. And folks, that is a legitimate criticism. And that makes a lot of sense. And it is a lot more nuanced than what everyone else is reporting. Like the aggregators and the Twitter drain makers and all of that. Yota Tsuji's calling for a boycott. Well, they didn't read the fucking article. Anyway, we'll get to the boycott stuff, but he's not calling for a boycott. We got to stop being preposterous here for a second. But he continued. If we're going to aim to be the number one promotion in the world, the staff deserve to be treated accordingly. I don't know all the specifics of the current employment situation, but drawing on my own experience as a salaryman before wrestling, I feel very strongly about getting rid of the blanket overtime system, which from what I understand is just like, everyone is required to do overtime in the companies, in the corporate structures that you work for. That's my understanding. Is like, look, what he's looking for is fairness and reasons for people to stick around. And, getting rid of the blanket overtime system, is there something similar to that for New Japan? Because look, I had heard that the New Japan of America shows, one of the reasons they had difficulty getting guys to leave Japan to come wrestle on U.S. soil a couple of years ago was because was all related to money. Because apparently, and this is what I heard, consider this all as allegations, right? Rumors. Apparently, the guys coming over to do dates in America was sort of counted as part of their contract. It's like their usual dates, and they weren't paid any extra. I would assume their transportation was paid for, but they didn't make any more money coming to the States, flying, across the Pacific for, what is it, like 16 hours or something like that, and then being jet lagged to fuck and, all of that, and then going back like 2 days later, whatnot. It's the company should compensate, to a degree. Is that what he means? Is that the kind of thing that he means exists in New Japan, where in the contracts, wrestlers are expected to do more than what they're expected to do? I don't think that's necessarily fair. And I understand that it's also something that's cultural in Japan, but Tsuji, he said it himself. Look, I know it exists as a salary man, but we are not salary men here. We should be getting rid of this overtime system. He continues, inside and outside the ring, it's a new era, so we have to go on the offensive. We wrestlers have to show people something different than what they've seen before. That said, there are things New Japan absolutely cannot afford to lose, and we have to protect those carefully. Now, he's being a little more cagey here, and I'm assuming that the Japanese translation is probably a little more precise in what exactly he's speaking of here. But I think what he's saying is that, look, we all have to step it up. The talent has to deliver, and there's talent that New Japan can't afford to lose. So New Japan has to do a few extra efforts to protect that talent here. Now, in the first concrete step in that pledge, Tsuji hinted at what amounts to a forbidden door boycott. This is the quote that got everyone up in arms. This is the thing, right? Starting to talk about the article says what amounts to a forbidden door boycott, but he didn't use the term boycott. He didn't talk about boycotting. It's the author was like, well, it amounts to this. Here's the quote. Look back at the history. Fatal four-ways, open challenges, retired wrestlers getting title shots. Do you really think I'm going to put the IWGP up in a match that treats the title like that? I'm the man who brought the IWGP Heavyweight Championship back to life. I have a responsibility to protect its value, he says. If Tsuji follows through, it would mark the first time since the joint shows began in 2022 that an IWGP title match does not take place at Forbidden Door. So this is the one that got everyone up in arms. And the thing here, because this is what he's talking about. Look, there's been fatal four-ways and open challenges, right? And retired wrestlers getting title shots. He's talking about Nigel, right? The thing is, he's right. He's right about everything. He's right about every single thing here, where he says, look, they're doing just any kind. They're booking this title any old way, and I'm not going to stand for it. I'm the champion. I believe in my company and I believe in this belt. I think I think you're going to give me your best guy or nothing. And how is that not fair? How is that not absolutely okay? And I don't know why anyone is upset about this. How would you feel if the AEW title, AEW World title, was thrown around willy-nilly like that in Japan, and booked every half-ass way, and Yujiro Takahashi was getting shots at it? Well, Yujiro maybe is going a little far, but Yoshihashi. I mean, Jack Perry got a title shot a couple of years ago, right? Out of nowhere. And I mean, Nigel. Look, I enjoy 2026 Nigel as much as the other guy, but Nigel should not be competing for world titles regardless. He's not even competing for world titles in AEW or even in Ring of Honor. So what are we doing? I agree. I agree with everything Yota Tsuji said. And good for him. Because what he's saying is this type of bullshit devalues our title. And guess what? He's right. I have no counter argument. I have no way to counter this and say, no, you should be okay with your title being thrown around as a prop in a four-way match, fourth from the top. Absolutely not. I think essentially what he's saying is that the old regime didn't necessarily hold the title in high regard, but he does, and he will, because he loves New Japan and so on and so forth. I mean, it's not the first time that he talks about defending titles and whatnot. In fact, I'm even surprised that he even accepted, that he entertains the idea of the title being defended in AEW, because should you recall this January when he won the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, or at least when he brought it back, and won already had the global title, right? He had flat out said, look, you want me to go around internationally, defend a title? I'm going to defend the global title. That's what I'm going to do. That's the traveling title. That's the one that we go and defend, internationally in other promotions. But you want this title here, the big gold, the V12, what are we at? The V12. Anyway, you want the heavyweight title? You come to me. You come to my house. I get home court advantage. You come to me to challenge for this title. I don't go to you. And again, I don't have any issues with this. It makes perfect sense. Why would the top title be a traveling title being defended willy-nilly everywhere? Just like I don't have a problem with AEW, we saw it with MJF recently, where the world title would run around on the indies. MJF would go defend it here and there and everywhere. And I think that's cool because it's, in the context, it's bringing attention to the indie circuit, trying to elevate the indie. So, I'm not close to the other idea. But what I'm saying though is that if Yota Tsuji's position is fuck no, we're not defending my title on your terms. We're defending it on mine. I don't see how anyone can have a problem with that. I don't see how anyone can have a problem with that. But you know who has a problem with that? AEW fans. AEW fans took massive offense to this. I saw so many people upset that he's saying this. Of course, they're all reading the mistranslation, the machine translation. You've got the aggregators saying that Yota Tsuji called for a boycott, which he did not do. Folks, I just read the whole fucking thing for you. He didn't say, I'm going to boycott or we should all boycott. It's the guy or the gal who wrote the article says what amounts to a Forbidden Door boycott. And what is the boycott? What is it? He's basically saying, look, if you're not going to treat my championship, the biggest prize in our land, as something special, I'm not going to come defend it. I'm not defending it against Jay Lethal. And he's right. He's absolutely right. Why would he defend it with? But then you can flip this around. Who the fuck is Yota Tsuji for the non-Japanese wrestling viewers, right? He's slowly becoming a name, but he's not a name yet. So instead of just shoehorning him on the card, we're going to wait a couple of years until he's a really big established name. And then we'll start feeding him some really big guys. We'll have him come over and he'll headline the Forbidden Door with, fucking Swerve Strickland or Kenny Omega. Who cares, right? Or finally get the match with Okada, which would be awesome. So honestly, folks, I have no issues with this. Like I said, the fans got really upset, unreasonably upset. I saw people calling Yota Tsuji a xenophobe because he didn't want to leave his country and I'm like, holy fuck. The old work's the new work, folks. People are getting worked. Like, I'm convinced, look, as much as I'm convinced that there is a part of what he's saying here which has a nugget of truth, or maybe more than a nugget, a foundation of truth, because he has been talking about this and, the relationship with AEW and whatnot, and he's kind of feuding with AEW on a professional level. He says, nonetheless, all this stuff, and he cuts interviews about this. He's working. And this is what so many wrestling fans do not understand, is that whenever a wrestler has a microphone, they are working. Regardless of where the microphone is, they are working all the time. Even if it's an interview with Tokyo Sports or a podcast appearance with Adam Friedland, it's all work. Not necessarily saying that they're in character and That's not necessarily it. You have to expand what you understand what a work is. Because a work can go outside of just character work. It could be just things and nuggets that they're planting that they know will be useful for the future. That they know they can come back to or that they can capitalize on here. AEW fans, man, they lost their minds because this guy here, imagine that, is working for his home audience. A home audience that has clearly said, we are tired of the relationship with AEW. We feel that we are not equals. Whether you agree with that or not is another point of discussion. But the New Japan fan base does indeed feel that way. This guy's no fucking moron. He's going to use this to his advantage. I'm the top guy. I'm a babyface. I'm going to restore honor to the title. I'm going to make sure that it's respected. AEW can't jerk me around. He's pandering to his audience. He's playing to his audience. And I've seen people say, listen, all sorts of stuff where I compared people's reactions to when Gabe Kidd shits on New Japan like he did this weekend. Everyone's going, bravo, masterful angle, well done. And then Yota Tsuji here, not even shitting on the company, just making a case as to why he will defend the title under certain circumstances. And they're like, fuck this piece of xenophobic trash. It is insane. Look, AEW fans, the hardcores. We're going to have ourselves, someone's got to tell you this face to face. I care about you enough to tell you the real deal, okay? This is what friends do. We say the real things to each other. This kind of behavior that you're having in regards to Yota Tsuji and other saying this stuff and completely turning on him and being extremely vile and aggressive for no apparent reason, this is exactly the type of behavior that you condemn the WWE hardcores of doing. And no, listen, you don't want to hear it, but I don't give a shit. You're going to try and give no, it's different, No, it's not. It's not fucking different. It's on the exact same level. It's the exact same thing that you guys are doing as the WWE fans do. Right now, in this type of circumstance, where you're just completely blinded by your attachment to your home promotion, and then you have this one guy who gives out extremely mild criticism. It hurts your fifis because he said bad things about your favorite promotion, so you go after him. It's exactly the same playbook. If Yota Tsuji cut the exact same interview, and instead of saying AEW said WWE, you would all be cheering. You'd be going, yes, King, let him know, let him cook. That's all you'd be doing. Just because he's doing it against your favorites, you're like, look, I don't mind if you're getting worked. And in fact, you shouldn't mind either. In fact, you should be happy that you're getting worked. You should be happy that in 2026, there are things that will still make you believe in pro wrestling. There are things that will come in and grab at you to the point where you're like, yeah, fuck this guy. That's good. If anything, Tsuji is listening to this podcast right now. What a huge Suge. He's listening to this podcast right now, and he's sitting back in his armchair, and he has a Sapporo. He cracks it open and he says, "Haha, my job here is done," and takes a sip. He's winning right now because of all of your dumbass reactions. Just appreciate the work. Don't get involved. Don't make your personality. I've said this so many times before, and not just in pro wrestling. In any type of media, you can enjoy media without being weird about it. You can enjoy media, any kind of sports team, anything, without being weird, without making it your personality. Because you know what happens then when you connect to something so profoundly that it becomes part of your personality. It's in your Twitter feed and your Blue Sky profile, and is that when bad things happen, when people do bad things to your promotion or to the thing that you like, then it's a reflection on your personality. Then you get you feel you have to stick up for the thing. But it's not a reflection on you. It's not a reflection on you. It should not be part of your personality. It should be something you enjoy and that you're able to like switch on, switch off. That's a normal way of consuming things. Not feeling like you're being assaulted by all sides, like the fucking, I don't know, like the Franks against the Visigoths. Was that even a thing? Anyway, I feel like it's something that's possible, that the Franks would be invaded by the barbaric hordes, right? The Visigoths and whatnot, right? Someone will check it out for me. But the reality is that the hardcore AEW fans, and I know they don't want to hear it, but sometimes you just got to hear the truth, the raw, unfiltered truth. You're acting like WWE hardcores. That's all there is to it. And if you can't detach yourself enough to realize that, hey, this guy here is probably working because it's fucking Forbidden Door season, and I don't know what to tell you. Log off and stop making a fool out of yourself. And rage in your corner. I think anyone getting upset, like legitimately upset by this, going online, calling Yota Tsuji a xenophobe and whatnot, I think you need help. I think you need to log off. You need to have real conversations with real people. That's all the help you need. You need to go out. You need to have a nice meal at a restaurant, and you got to log off. You got to log the fuck off. Not saying that the Japanese can be xenophobic. It is a culture that historically has a distrust of foreigners. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. And I'm definitely not saying that Yota Tsuji is xenophobic or racist or whatever. I don't know the guy. All I can base myself on is on the comments that he made. And in no fucking way do I read the comments and say, oh yeah, this guy is, he's an absolute isolationist. Yeah, fuck this guy. In no way does he give that impression. Why? Because I read the article. Why do I know this? Because I read the article. I didn't take, the fucking poorly aggregated shit. The shit that aggregators already do a bad job at it. And add on top of that, that they're reading machine translations that are already kind of missing the curve on certain things. You have to realize that the machine, when they translate it, there's certain words that are going to be lost there, that it won't be the exact meaning that is going to be transmitted. And you know why I know this is all also a work, that this is part of a bigger work, that maybe it does connect with Yota Tsuji's desire to return prestige to the title and make it feel like the most important title on earth again, the IWGP Heavyweight title. You know how I understand that he doesn't absolutely hate AEW? Because I continued reading the fucking article. Listen to this. He's made no secret of his competitive feelings towards AEW over the years, but he's not writing off the relationship entirely. Here's a quote. I actually like Tony Khan. I appeared at Forbidden Door once, the 2024 show, and even though I was on 0 Hour, he came to find me personally and said, I'm a fan of yours. Thank you for being here. I think there are things we can learn from AEW under the new structure. It's about taking what works and leaving what doesn't. Funny how that bit didn't make it. It didn't make it to these articles, right? Why isn't the headline Yota Tsuji likes Tony Khan? Oh, well, we know why. We know why. And you know why I think this is true? I'll tell you why I think this is true. Because it's a very Tony Khan thing to do. To go over to the wrestlers, shake their hand, say thank you. I'm a fan of yours. Thank you for coming. It's a very Tony Khan thing to do. Especially since recently, who was it who had an experience in New Japan and came back and was like, man, you go there and no one comes to see you. No one from the staff comes and talks to you. You hang out with the wrestlers, but no one comes and says, thank you, you did a great job. I can't remember who said that, but that's a thing that exists. So Huge Tsuji comes over in 2024 when he's still a scrub, when they're still trying to figure out what to do with him, they being New Japan. And Tony Khan goes to him and shakes his hand. It's like, hey, I'm a big fan. Thank you very much for coming. I have no reason to believe that is a lie. Why would he make that up? And besides, he's saying, I like Tony Khan, and there's a lot we can learn from AEW, despite the fact that I'm competitive against them. What a fucking nuanced take. And yet, what everyone is going to talk about is how he doesn't want to come defend because he wants to boycott Forbidden Door. Chat, I want you to be very, very fucking honest with me. Super honest. Is there, in what I read to you, is there anything that makes you feel, is there anything I read here that exhibits any kind of deep and profound hatred for All Elite Wrestling? I don't know. I don't see it. Should mention that Hiroki Goto pushed back against Tsuji's take on Twitter. I did not know that. That did not enter my purview. Let me see here. We'll do some live research. Okay, here it is. Hiroki Goto posted this on Twitter earlier today. That completely fell. That was not part of. I did not see it. Apologize, but we got around to it. Shout out to DJ Convoy. Don't forget the spirit of accepting anyone's challenges at any time. Isn't it like admitting defeat before fighting? I think we should fight because he is the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. Okay, he pushed back, but then he's also like, hey, I think I should get a shot. You know, if anything, look, he's not wrong where he's like, you should accept everyone's challenge. And I don't think that's what Tsuji is arguing against. He's just saying, fight me on my terms, bitch. That's what he's saying, essentially, right? And yeah, so I agree with Goto on that front. He's absolutely right. But he's also working here too. He says, you know, it's like, I think we should fight because he is the IWGP Heavyweight Champion. So, you know, he's, angling for a shot himself, which is fun. I don't have an issue with it. He should do that. He should be like, well, the champion said this, but, you know, I think I should deserve a shot. It's what a good worker should do. Now, if only we could end this story at this moment. If only we could all wrap it up here. But Will Ospreay, who just got fucking married, like he's probably, you know, on his honeymoon or whatever, whatever kind of honeymoon you can have when you're pro wrestlers, right? He just fucking gets married and he's like, no, I got to pick a fight on Twitter. Will, if you're listening, put the phone down. Have yourself some fun with your new bride. And Alex, have yourself some fun with your new groom. Because of course Will Ospreay had to respond. He had to respond. And this is what he says on Twitter. Or maybe have some pride in representing your company as the top lad. When I held any IWGP championship, I wanted to travel the world calling out the best to show them all New Japan is the better. Obviously, his home market is Japan, and he has done a great job in the top spot. To me, this screams insecure. The roster clearly isn't as driven as the guys I once was surrounded by. Just big belly boys wanting to keep playing free play. Grow a sack, fill it with some nuts, call out the best in the world, and show the world how good New Japan is. Just my thoughts. Completely unnecessary, but also he has given us the incredible line of big belly boys, which to me makes it all worth it. And I will forgive Will for getting involved in a situation that he really didn't have to get into. That really, really, really didn't involve himself. So essentially, if we're connecting with what Hiroki Goto said, right? I think we can connect with what Hiroki Goto said, where basically Will and Goto are telling him, listen, pal, be a fighting champion. That's essentially what it is, right? Again, I don't think that's not the read that I got from Tsuji's thing. Tsuji's statement all revolved around, I don't want people booking the IWGP Championship willy-nilly. That's essentially what he was saying. Now, of course, this is all up to interpretation, like all great art is. and Will Ospreay took it this way. And again, Will here didn't have to get involved, but he did. And there's a couple of things that he said here that, just like Yota Tsuji, I can't disagree with. Especially when he talks about the roster not being as driven as when Will was around and the guys he had surrounded with. Think about the period when Will Ospreay was coming up as a junior in New Japan. Just take a moment to think back at who was surrounding him at that time. Who were the guys? And you're like, fuck, yeah, you're absolutely right. This was a locker room that would watch everyone's matches, would watch the match before them so that they knew what to do to one up what those guys just did. That's how competitive and driven it was, and that's why people talk in reverence about the 2010s in New Japan. That's why they talk in reverence about it. And look, if you listen to anything I have to say about New Japan for the past 2 to 3 years, you will know that I default to Will's assertion here, where it's like, big belly boys want to keep playing free play. Guys who aren't as driven. I agree. I 100% agree. So what he's saying to Tsuji here essentially is, stop talking about it and do something about it, right? Like he says, grow a sack, fill it with nuts, and then come after the best in the world. I don't think it reeks of insecurity. I really don't feel like Yota Tsuji's statement is a statement that comes from a place of insecurity. I think au contraire, it comes from a place of love. I think it comes from a place where of absolute love and appreciation and loyalty for the company he works for what New Japan represents, for what the Lion Mark represents. He wants the title to be respected. He doesn't want it to be thrown around like a prop, like he feels it has been in the past Forbidden Doors. He specifically called out the previous situations in which he took offense to it. And that also takes balls. And like Will said, obviously his home market is Japan, and he's done a great job at the top spot. But to me, this screams insecure. No, his market is indeed Japan, and they, being New Japan, the first thing they have to do is get more people into the buildings so that they can continue making money, so that they can stay alive. Their objective is not sending their champion to go defend it on other cards elsewhere that will not benefit their home market. That's essentially what you have to remember that. You have to remember that there are no media deals in Japan. Japanese promotions are still very much reliant on dates. So less people show up. It's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. Now, 2026 started off tremendously, started tremendously by selling out the Tokyo Dome, but I don't think we're doing repeat business on that level on January 4th in 2027. I don't think so, but but we'll see. And then, as Chad pointed out, you beat me to the punch here. It's Forbidden Door season, you dorks. Everyone's working. Everyone is working. Now, the question you can absolutely ask yourself is, why would Will Ospreay get involved in the situation for Forbidden Door if he's working? Like, he's just throwing some fuel on this rivalry between AEW and New Japan. He can't get involved directly with Yota Tsuji for Forbidden Door. Will is he's got his hands full for Forbidden Door. He's already booked. He's got his ticket. He's got no time to muck around with the IWGP champion from this point moving forward right up until August when they're in Wembley Stadium. He's got no time for any of this. So, obviously the question is, it's like, why exactly did he do this for? Like I said, just throwing some gas on the fire. I think that's all it is. And like Yota Tsuji, got in couple of little digs, maybe couple of little things here that are closer to the heart than an actual work. I don't think he's saying I don't think everything he said here is entirely fabricated. There's probably things that he feels very, very strongly about, but I also think he's playing along. And wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be funny as hell if Yota Tsuji shows up at Forbidden Door and he gets booed because people hate him because he hates AEW and he's such a cocky asshole? Wouldn't that be funny? I think it'd be funny. Then Warren Hayes will sit back in his armchair, grab a Sapporo, a Pepsi lime, a Pepsi Zero lime flavored. Take a big sip and my work here is done. That's look, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. And the argument was like, well, he's a babyface in Japan. It's like, yeah, local heels. Jesus Christ. There is such a thing as the local heels thing. Even AEW did that for a while. You'd have the local baby faces, local heels and whatnot. It doesn't fucking matter. My God, there's a lot of fans. There's a lot of fans who have to lighten up, and they have to look inward and realize that what they're doing is exactly what they make fun of WWE fans for, and they're doing it. Anyway, look, it's a whole big thing. And my takeaways are all clear, I think. Now, I don't think Yota Tsuji is a xenophobe, and I don't think he profoundly hates AEW. I think he's using it, like he said, competitive. Yes, absolutely. Now, will it go too far? Time will tell. But as it stands, I think it's healthy. I think it's good. And that about does it for another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Thank you all so very much for joining me today. If you're still here at the very end, I would assume that that's a sign that I have earned your subscription, and I would love to have it. Please drop a subscription, or at the very least a like here on this video. 5-star reviews, 5-star ratings, and all that good stuff. I will be back tomorrow, Thursday, with another edition of the AEW Dynamite Review. Later on in the evening, as it is typical on Thursdays, we will stream live on the YouTube channel. So if you can make it, it's a good time. There's a lot of stuff that we talk about on stream that ends up in the podcast, but there's a lot of stuff that doesn't. And a lot of those things are nonsense. So it's a good time. We'd love to have you if you can. If not, listen, no big deal. We'll be around. We'll come back next week. So whenever you decide to show up, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.